Just comb your hair, go and wash your face. It's been a real long time since you've seen the light of day. So let thoughts come as they may, beauty and parade. Everybody all smiles when you're back in the seat again. All aboard the Petty Express to a beautiful darkness. It's full steam ahead to ride the rails to our next destination. Yeah!
Good morning, everyone. It's Mo, your conductress on the Petty Express, and we are ready for, I think we are ready for day 5. So that's where we are today. I know it says day 5, part 2, but I think I messed up our timing just a little bit. So I will be, finishing that in post. Good morning, Tammy Fayette and KLF and Denise Sells. So we are starting on day 5 today because honestly, we've gotten through all of day 4 that I could see, and we are ready for day 5. Now we are still in the state's case in chief. We did get done with the Michigan fire investigator, and after all that rigmarole, I honestly can't say that I've learned anything new other than the fact that the gas can was on the front lawn when the fire marshal, it's interchangeable, so it's the state police chief fire investigator or arson investigator. And there was a lot of tension and snarkiness from the defense, but I think that both sides got some good things in. So I will be doing a more detailed kind of breakdown of that tonight after we get done with today. But we are going in on a brand new day. And this is towards the end of the day, and hopefully we get to it, so we will be a little bit caught up. But one of Linda Stermer's and Todd Stermer's sons does testify today. So that is going to be really interesting to see how that goes as far as, what new things we're going to learn. Now, looking through and kind of moving through today, it looks like we're going to get into a lot of the, Linda was having an affair, okay? So it seems like we're going to start getting all of the little pieces and marrying them together for the state today. So we're going to start talking to friends, to family members, and really getting where some of these things started to not add up. Hopefully, because I swear to goodness, if we are on day 6 and we still don't know how this man, how any of this happened, I will lose my mind. I will say I can't imagine what it's like to be, the mother of the victim and to hear, your son talked so badly about during trial, and then to still go to every day, not being a, spring chicken yourself. And especially on days like today where it is cold, it is rainy, and I did not want to wake up this morning. I would just like to say, the strength that it takes to be a mom and sit through this woman has my prayers, because I couldn't. Well, I mean, I couldn't without catching myself a case, I think is how I need to phrase that. Because if anything happens to my kids, I'm going to be in the courtroom every day, but I'm probably going to be an orange myself. I mean, just throwing it out there. Don't mess with my kids, okay? Now, it will be interesting to see if, as this case goes into verdict watch, what is the breakdown of, the children supporting Linda and the children not supporting Linda? Do both of her children or her daughters from a previous marriage support her? Or where does that fall party lines wise? Now, I haven't heard too much about the daughter. She was the smoke show that we have seen there several days. Oh, look at him trying to act like he's taller over here standing himself on a stair like we don't notice stuff. Okay, I see you, sir.
Mom, do you
Sorry, middle daughter asked me if I knew where a lint roller was, and I was like, well, now, sweetheart, the last time I had the foggiest, faintest clue of where one was in the place where I keep putting it away, and then no one puts it back. So I don't know that we have a lint roller. I hope I didn't just send my daughter to look for something that we don't have. To be very real with you,
Any other
though.
matters, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Oh, Linda, did you just put on blue eyeshadow? Am I seeing a bit of periwinkle and frosted blue on those lids? 'Cause wow, Linda, don't no one wear blue eyeshadow anymore unless it's me and I'm joking on something. That being said, wow. She conditioned too. I know. 2 days in a row. It is like a hair miraculousness up in this joint. But also, Linda, no on the blue eyeshadow. Just no. Especially if you have blue eyes. I can tell you it looks weird on blue-eyed people. Now, that being said, not being from the 70s, maybe there is a certain tone of blue I'm supposed to be using.
Okay.
I should ask my mom.
Anything else then before we bring in the jury?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Sir, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
And do be careful, those of you who are, with us from the soaked Midwest. Don't try to drive through any standing water. If the road says it's closed, don't try to, Oregon Trail your way through it. Let's be safe. A lot of places are still dealing with flooding. Excuse me, just became a 14-year-old boy for a little bit there. My voice is going to change soon. Woohoo! But, there are still dangerous places with all the flooding, especially in my locality, and we are expected to get more rainy weather this, coming week. So again, you might not get the same total of rain that you had, but the ground is already saturated. So do keep that in mind. Now, for all other meteorological sort of life advice, go to Ryan Hall, y'all, because I don't know jack about doodle squat as far as it comes to the mathology of weather, other than to tell y'all don't try to drive through any standing water. Look, I made both of my girls like solemnly swear they were up to no good and they would not go through water before I sent them out to school today, okay? I get Twitter pated about these things, so I need to mother the entire internet. Oh, that light in my face would just bother the ever-loving shit out of me.
Sir, I will swear you in again. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Ivy?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Willison, we kind of left off yesterday.
Okay.
I just want to
Well,
recap a
wait,
couple
we
of the
might have
issues
missed
that we
something
touched
because
on.
I didn't see Mr. Willerson. So let me go back to day 4. Because I know we had finished with the...
In me is going to tell you your instruction regarding...
Okay,
information comes forward.
Is there a way that a
finished
fire
that. All right, maybe we're missing... I don't know, y'all. That's why I have been double guessing myself every single time I go through this. Because I'm like, no, we went through this. No, we didn't. Yes, we did. No, we didn't. I'm amazingly unable to come up with it. Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to recommend nothing. If your pick-me-up truck has a Carolina squat, yeah, just don't try to drive through stuff would be my general, kind of idea. All right, let's get back forward. So it looks like we got all through day 4 into day 5. So now I'm just going to go with this is, okay, now who the hell is, all right.
easily confused?
All right, now, no, because this is Mr. Leroy, and we were already through this because we got into the part where we had all the printouts. I think Court TV and Law and Crime are on different days. Because this is looking more like what we had. Because we were all through this. And then, okay, let's do jury questions, because I don't think we got to jury questions with him. I am sorry, you guys. It looks like Court TV and Law and Crime have different dates for this trial. That is why we were Twitter-pated. So we did actually get through this entire witness. We were just stuck on jury questions, I believe. So let's go there.
Counsel, sir, some questions from the jury. Were any fingerprints taken on the gas can left in the front yard collected at 1:40 January 8?
I did not collect any fingerprints. I just collected the can.
Any evidence of a phone landline wiring during the excavation?
I did not locate any, but I also wasn't specifically looking for telephone communications during the excavation.
Do you know what happened to the, quote, container that Todd Stermer was transferred in from near the house to away from the house? Did you ever see it?
What's referred to has been referred to as the toy boat. I've never seen it.
For this specific investigation, did you already determine origin and cause before excavating the site?
No.
Do you believe investigating a fire is best to do right away or days later?
That depends on the case, of course. In this case, I am a strong advocate of not investigating a scene at night, especially right after the active fire, because active fire, even if the fire's out, the scene is still steaming. There's a lot of steam coming off, so fogs up camera lenses and you can't see as well. And it's just, I always prefer to do investigation in the daylight. I've done them days after, but it's always better the sooner to the event, and the sooner to the event possible is always better.
Is there ever a scenario in an investigation for you to return to the site?
Yes.
Was there any reason for you to return, in your professional opinion?
This question is going to call for 18 years of experience since the fire and a lot of hindsight. So, and that's yes.
I do like how he is very, very clear. As much as the defense has kind of tried to paint him as a bumbling doof, I do think that he is humble and is answering questions the way I would want an expert to answer them. You know, hey, what I will tell you now is with experience I have gleaned from, years of doing this job and knowledge I did not have at the time. So my contemporaneous actions would have not the benefit of this, knowledge I've gained. So I do like that. Thorbert, you have gotten me with your nails 3 times this weekend. I'm not happy with you right now. Yes, Thor is in trouble. So what he likes to do is hang out on the dining room tables right next to our right on our dining room. And when he feels that it is just too late in the afternoon and people should notice that the cats need to be fed, he will snipe you with his little paw and clap you. Now, usually he gets me on my bingo wing right about here in this general region of the arm fat area. And I don't know if you have ever tried to pinch your own bingo fat or had a mom that would pinch you right on the... Like, that shit hurts worse than a punch to the boob, okay? Also, punches to the boob do not feel great. I imagine it's kind of like when guys get hit in the testicles. That being said, as my chesticles are on my chest, I don't know. That being said, let's continue with the jury questions.
In hindsight and more experience, I could have returned. It would have taken some more hoops to jump through to get there, but I could have.
When you arrived at the house and were told it could potentially be a crime scene, did you take into consideration while doing your investigation that Ms. Stermer's interview may not have been accurate?
I would have taken Linda Stermer's interview at just face value. Not just take it at face value and not try to determine truthfulness or not truthfulness, because I wouldn't have enough information, so I would just take it at face value.
Okay, thank you. Counsel, any questions in light of the questions and answers?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Mueller?
Yes.
No. No, the hell you don't have any more questions. No, I have had to deal with your Kinko's
You took Linda
projects.
Stermer's statement at face value, correct?
Yes.
But her statement as to the origin of the fire also corroborated the physical evidence that you had found, correct?
Yes,
Which was the area of origin living room as opposed to the kitchen or dining room.
correct.
So that was consistent, and that physical evidence corroborated her statements, correct?
Correct.
And her statements corroborated your physical investigation.
Correct.
Now, certainly you were aware of this boat that Todd Stermer had been transferred in,
Yes,
because it's in your report.
correct.
You just chose not to consider it, fair?
I did not look at it.
Explains a lot.
And you certainly could have requested that the gasoline can that was found in the front yard be tested for fingerprints. That's within your purview.
I could have, but I left that to the other detectives on the case.
And as to return that question about returning to the scene, you certainly could have returned to the scene. Nothing prevented that.
Correct.
And are you telling us, based on now 18 more years of experience, you would have returned to take pictures of the excavation that you knew you had to take before?
No, I never said that. I would return to document more evidence.
Okay. You would have, I'm sorry.
I would have returned probably with Jim Shinsky.
You would have returned to document more evidence, but you knew in 2007, as a 6-year veteran, you need to document evidence.
Yes,
And a digital camera is simply just pushing a button.
correct.
You took 138 pictures, right?
Correct?
But again, as you said, you simply forgot.
Push my
Has been asked and answered.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. And you still done? Yes. Mr. Blair? Jury, do you have
Average Deb, no problem, because I was a little confused about where we were, considering Court TV and Law and Crime are on completely different schedules as far as this trial is concerned. Now, I am glad to be done with Mr. Blair. I am so done with this witness. I know that we are in for fuckery with this next witness, but I am ready to be done with this witness.
Have any other questions of this witness? Okay, I've got a hand going up, I think one.
No, Tammy Fayette, I do wonder if this look, more polished look, is a misstep, because I do think that in the frumpier look, it's going to be, you know, people will cheat with whoever. I mean, if you want to cheat, you're going to find a person to cheat with. But I think her more frumpy grandmother
Objection from counsel.
look
Did you note any fuel?
was much more sympathetic than this more polished look. Now, as a person who likes people to feel good about their hair, I like this look. But I do wonder if this was a misstep to do this big change, you know, in the middle of the trial. I think frumpier would have gotten her more sympathy. I think this more polished look is going to make her look more vain, more, you know, interested in her appearance, which, you know, again, Linda can do no right as she is sitting there on the witness stand. If she looks frumpy, I'm going to make fun of her, which I already do. If she looks polished, I'm going to point out how this is going to feed into the state's narrative that Linda was worried about Linda and not the rest of her family, because she chose to have an affair. She chose to make her husband unhappy. She chose to do all of these things. So you do not want to put self-motivation, self-focus, you know, as a forefront, as something very visual for jurors to see. But that's just my opinion, and maybe I thought too much about this over the weekend, which is possible. Because y'all, Hagatha and the artist formerly known as did not like the rain, and we are fixing to get more rain this week.
In the cans in the shed.
I did not.
Thank you. Questions, any questions, lawyers, in light of that?
No.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. Any more from the jury? Nope. Okay, thank you, sir. You're all done. And is he excused from his subpoena obligation?
excused, Your Honor.
Excused? Agreed, counsel?
Yes.
To excuse him?
Welcome,
Thank you, sir. You're all
welcome,
done.
Katie Buck.
And Ms. Ida?
Your Honor, please call Cynthia Deloach to the stand, please.
Excuse for me.
Okay, and Cynthia Deloach, for you guys who have had a weekend away from this, is actually the gas station attendant who took Linda's order and had her do, took her money for the gasoline that she bought on the day of this incident in January 7th, 2007. Now, interesting thing and things to look for from the defense. Now, according to the lead detective in this case for the local, police department, this particular witness was not talked to until a year to 2 years after the initial crime. Now, at that time, they did attempt to try to get her to recollect her, memories of the day. And they did manage to find a receipt that would correlate to Linda. And Average Deb says, I kind of disagree with being frumpy, not too far in the other direction, but Jennifer Crumbly was brought to court looking very dowdy and not like herself when the crimes were committed. I do think Jennifer Crumbly put a nail in her own coffin when she put herself up as the victim. Not only should her defense attorney have never asked that question, there was no way to answer that question right or in a way that, was intellectually honest and not be pilloried to hell and back. When you have families of children who were gunned down by her children, that question right there by her defense attorney, I think, sunk her. Because that question therein solidified in everyone's mind that Ethan Crumbly's parents think they are the victims, not the dead children. And that gave the jury all they needed to, convict her. That's my opinion on that one. That being said, who the heck knows what this jury is going to think? Oh, that's a cute little jumper corduroy suit. Ooh, we got some, low lights and some dramaticalness.
Thank you. Ma'am, if you raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, I do. Okay, please have a seat. And then you can move that microphone right up to your mouth so the jury can hear you.
Okay.
And if you could start by telling us your full name and spelling the last, please.
Cynthia Deloach, Deloach.
Thank you. Ms. Ida?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Deloach, you don't have to tell me your exact address, but where do you live? What city or township?
Lawrence,
How long have you lived there?
since 1980.
And did you, while living in Lawrence, have an opportunity to know who Todd Stermer was?
In passing, like at the gas station where I had worked, I had seen him there. I also worked at the school, so sporting events, things like that, I knew of him.
Knew of him?
Yes.
And did you know Linda Stermer?
In the same way, yes.
Yeah. Had you seen them at school?
Yes,
And were you familiar with their children?
yes.
And did you have children in school at the time?
My children were older than them, but my nephew was very close to one of the boys, so yes, I had seen him in numerous places.
And so when you say one of the boys, you mean one of the Stermer boys?
Yes, yes.
Do you recall where you were working on January 7th of 2007?
Yes, I was at the Marathon gas station in Lawrence.
Right there in Lawrence? And what was your position at that time?
I was the cashier there.
And how long did you work there?
A total of 18 years, but I think at the fire time it wasn't, maybe 5 or 6. Okay. So,
And you brought up at the time of the fire, do you remember the day of the fire?
yes, I do.
Why do you remember the day of the fire?
I just remember the fact we're a small town, and I worked that morning. My husband and I had taken our son to the movie in Coloma. We were on our way home. We had to pull over for the Hartford Fire Department coming down Red Arrow. We got to like Red Arrow and 681, and then we pulled over for the Bangor Fire Department also that were coming into town.
And later on, did you learn then what those fire trucks were going to?
Yes, but when they were coming into town, I had said to my husband, I said, we should follow them because I was worried about my parents. They were old, and it was always a big thing when we heard a siren in the family. We always called my mom and dad to make sure they were okay. So we were heading towards their direction, and the fire trucks went around the curve, so we just took the big block and went home because it didn't go in the direction of my parents.
You just wanted to make sure they weren't
Yeah.
pulling into your parents' driveway?
Yes,
And you remember that day?
yes, ma'am.
And at some point, did you become aware that the fire trucks were going to the Stermer residence?
When we went around the curve, you could see them heading down 215, but I didn't know what driveway they were pulling into, no. But later in the evening, through my sister-in-law, is how we had heard of the fire.
Have you been to the Lawrence gas station recently?
Yes.
Is it set up the same as it was when
No.
you worked there?
No, it's totally different now. It's all opposite. Like, it's bigger. The entrance is at the other end now. The register is at the other end of the station, so everything is completely different.
Is it kind of flip-flop?
Yes, yes.
And what was your typical shift that you would work on like a Sunday?
7 till noon.
Do you recall if you saw Linda Stermer, I'm sorry, I thought you were stopping me for a moment. Do you recall if you saw Linda Stermer the day that you were working on January 7th of 2007?
Yes, I do.
And that would have been before you saw the fire trucks then later that evening?
Yes, long before that.
During your shift?
Yes.
Tell me what you remember about seeing Ms. Stermer at the gas station that day.
I remember her pulling into the station because she had made an outside purchase at the pump. So the reason I knew it was outside because it makes a dinging inside and we have to clear the register and turn the pump on. And I remember her pulling in like on the west side of the parking lot and then pulling up to pump 3, which would put her on the south side of the pump right next to the building. So my view was right out the window to that.
So you had a clear view of
Yes, ma'am. With the old station, yes.
with the old station, and you said you recalled her, you knew she was at pump 3?
Yes.
And you had to look out before you turned the pump on, is that right?
Yes, because the lady that owned the station was always you had to check first in case the credit card didn't work or something. You would know who the person was if they were to like pull away when they were done.
So it was a safety feature?
Yes, yes.
And tell me what you saw when you looked outside that day.
She had, I'm not as positive if it was like my mom's old car, and she had a Blazer. So you turned the glass, and then you lifted up the top
Where are you talking about where the glass in the handle would be located?
in the very back of the vehicle.
So in the rear of the vehicle?
Yes.
And you described it as like a glass with a handle?
Right, and you would just, pick it up, and then the window would go up to the top.
Kind of like where the trunk would be, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, so you saw Ms. Sturmer then opening up that glass?
yes.
And lifting it up?
Yes.
And then what did you see?
Her putting the hose into the car, not into the gas pump, into the gas tank, into the back window.
So when you say not into the gas tank, you mean the tank of the car?
Correct.
And you distinctly remember that?
Yes.
Linda, are you telling me you are as sus to put the gas hose through your car window to fill up the tank or the gallon of gas? Now, call me crazy, but if Mr. Moe saw me do that, he would read me the riot act. I thought you take it out. I mean, call me crazy, but the way I've always done this, having worked a lawnmower or 27 in my life, is you take the container out of your trunk or wherever you're storing the container, you fill it with gasoline, and then you put it back in your trunk after you tightly secure it. You don't fill it in your car. I mean, that looks more sus than if you take a canister, especially with it being rural. I mean, everyone's got them like, a Kubota, a Husqvarna, Harvesters International. Although for those, you would most likely be using diesel or kerosene. So, you look a little sus if you put the gas tube through your window, woman.
Yes, ma'am.
And at that point, you couldn't see what she was pumping into, is that correct?
No, I could not.
But you distinctly saw her putting the hose through the half window into the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall what you saw after that?
No, because I'd gone about what else I was doing. She was done out there, and then she had came back into the station though after that.
So when one transaction is done, are you alerted at that time?
Yes, it dings that it's all done.
So then, did you hear that ding?
Yes,
And did you see her at that point?
I saw her outside of the station.
And then What did she do after that?
She came into the station then.
And then what did she do in the station?
She had made a comment, I remember, we both were speaking to each other about the fact that she was happy that the lady that owned the station carried things in the store that, like breakfast food, food of any type or whatever, and she purchased a few things, and then she was done.
Do you recall what she purchased?
No.
I'm going to show you what's been marked, what's actually been admitted is People's Exhibit 30-1 and 30-2. Okay.
That might be because my family had both a Kubota, a Husqvarna, and a John Deere, all in various states of it would sort of work most of the time. My parents didn't have a lot of land. They had about 7 acres, but you try doing that with a push mower and you will understand why tractors sell. Now, the attendants will say that you have to take the can out of the vehicle. They just say it out of the loudspeaker. Yeah, they do. Or I remember when cell phones were first a big thing. If you had your cell phone and you were talking on your cell phone while you were trying to pump gas, the gas attendants would not let you pump gas. Now I think they all just hope that we would all explode. So I don't think they care as much anymore. Or, the 5G network hasn't been shown to, cause explorations. I don't know. But I remember being so embarrassed when the lady was like, "Sweetie, if you're talking on the phone, I can't let you pump the gas." And it was like, oh, okay.
Do you recognize these items?
Yes, this is register tapes that when they're empty, when we're done with them, they go underneath the counter in a box. Yes.
And do you recognize the flat piece of paper, which is then 30-2?
Yes, it's a receipt.
I'm going to go ahead and put that receipt up on the screen. And I'm going to have you then describe the receipt and what we're looking at. So I'm going to start at the top of the receipt, so you can either use it from the screen or from what you have in front of you.
Okay.
Can you tell us what we're looking at the top of the receipt here, this top section?
The top section is a purchase of gas that someone had made for $10 up top at the very top.
So when you say at the very top, you're talking the $10, you're
Yes.
talking the 10, the number 10 right up here?
Yes,
Okay. And how do you know that that's gas?
because it says unleaded fuel pump 2.
Unleaded fuel pump.
Yes, number sign 02. So mine is higher than yours. I mean, mine shows more than what's showing up.
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry, so
Okay.
you're higher.
Yes.
I apologize. So that is a different transaction on pump 2, is that correct?
Yes.
I apologize, I was probably confusing you.
That's
So I'm
okay.
going to have you go beneath that $10 and then
Okay.
just go ahead and then start telling me then what is beneath the $10, which I'm going to say, which would be starting at this line. If you could then read that to me. Like, just explain that portion.
Okay, the pump 3?
Yes, the pump 3 part.
Okay, it says outdoor sale, pump number 3. It gives the date of 1/7/07 at 10:07. And it was an authorization that the pump was cleared and that the credit card had been used. And then it also gives the approval code for your, the approval of the credit card.
So is the approval code this long number here that I've got the dot on? Is that the approval code?
No, the approval number is 0075 or 7598 in the amount of 1101.
Where is she seeing
I'm going to
this?
have you show me on the receipt where we're looking at here.
Okay, so here's the authorization and here's the approval code right here. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Blair, can you go down farther? I'm not far down. That's why.
Oh, for God's
Okay,
sake.
so the authorization code you're looking at is right here.
Yes.
The 007598, is that correct?
Yes.
And then it says the outdoor sale pump 3, is that correct?
Yes.
And this is the date you're referring to of January 7th of 07 at 10:07, is that
Yes.
correct? Now, at the time, were you aware if that 10:07 was the correct time?
No, it wasn't, because when the time changed in the fall, Sue, our owner, did not manually change the register.
So it would have been an hour off?
Right.
Would
so
the correct time have been, do you know what the correct time?
9:07.
9:07.
Yes.
Okay. And so this shows the outdoor sale pump, the approval code. Where's the amount then for the outdoor sale?
It's amount 1101, right next to the approval code. See,
Oh,
amount 1101.
right here, right where my dot is?
Yes.
And so that would have been the
Finally.
amount of the outdoor sale, 1101?
Yes.
Okay. And then if we continue down, and you, what is this long number, the account number?
The account number of the credit cards used.
Okay. And then if we then move down a little bit farther, we see taxable, non-taxable, non-taxable, non-taxable. What is that?
Those were the items that were purchased in the store.
In the store?
Yes.
And that would have been then the numbers we're looking at here, $1.29, $2.29, $1.59, $2.49, correct?
Yes,
And that would have been a total then of $7.74?
correct.
And you said this is inside.
Yes,
And how do you know it's inside?
because I ring it up inside with her card, in the inside sale.
And then if I go down to the next section where it says MasterCard, can you then describe what we're looking at here with these names and numbers?
Right, it says the MasterCard was used, it was Todd J. Stermer's card, the account number that is on the card, and then it also has the approval that it went through on that.
Would that be that authorization number?
That would be the account, yes, ma'am.
Right here, the 007233?
Yes,
Okay. And then that also has the date and time?
yes,
And what's that?
10:09, but it would be 9:09.
909. And same date of January 7th, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, do you know what non-taxable and taxable items are?
Well, non-taxable would be anything you could eat.
So non-taxable then would be anything you could eat. Could
Right.
be a candy bar, could be eggs, could be anything.
Right, right,
And and then taxable would be anything you can't eat?
correct.
Okay. And I want to ask you about these numbers. So the long number I asked you about up here?
Yes.
The 55809, several numbers.
Yes,
Is that the same number that we're looking at then on the indoor portion?
yes, it is. It's the same credit card used.
Same credit card used outside as used inside?
Yes.
Anything else on this receipt that would be pertinent then to that indoor sale or that outdoor sale that I'm missing?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, like how the hell you're letting Linda use Todd's card? I mean, I know this is a small town, but you would think that, you know, if you're handed a card that says Todd Stermer and it's a chick, you might ask questions. Candy bars, I think it's considered food, but I don't know if it's still considered food in all places. But basically, anything that is a grocery item, perishable, isn't taxed in certain states. I know Indiana doesn't have grocery tax, but any sort of like paper towel, paper product, anything like that would, you know, be not taxed. Chucky, I could be wrong. I don't know much about the tax law and where it goes as far as my Snickers, but now that I know that there's Snickers, you know, stuff, I definitely need to go ahead and fight for my right not to be taxed.
And did you see anybody else with Linda Stermer that morning?
No, there was not.
True.
She was by herself. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Nobody came to you right away, or let me rephrase that. Did somebody come to you immediately after the fire to talk to you about this transaction?
Not immediately, no.
No? How did it come about that you became involved?
There was a person that always shopped in the gas station, Deputy Wydick, and Tim would always ask me, did someone talk to you yet? And I said, no, whenever they need to talk to me, they'll find me. I would tell him all the time.
I'm going to object to that. It's hearsay.
Objection here,
I'm not offering for the truth of the matter, only that how she became involved in the investigation, Your Honor.
I'll allow it to explain her late statement.
So don't tell me maybe exactly what deputy, you said Wydick?
Yes.
Yes, so he would come into the store? Mm-hmm. He would bring it up to you?
Yes.
And at some point then, did you call somebody, or how did you become involved after you talked to him?
I came home one day and there was a card on my front door to get a hold of Mr. Maziowski at the Sheriff's Department.
And so did you do that at that time?
Yes, I had called him as soon as I came in the house and had that card.
Were you expecting that call?
No,
Did you want to be involved?
no.
But yet you called Detective Maziowski?
Yes, and he asked me if we could meet together. He had asked me to come that day, but I couldn't come that day. I went the next afternoon.
And then you explained to him what you explained to this jury today?
Yes.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Oh, Lord, it's Slow McSlow Pants.
Mr. Loach,
Yes.
how long have you stated that you, first of all, you stated that you have worked at this Marathon, is it a convenience store or is it a gas station?
It is both. It's
It's
a convenience
both.
store, gas station. It is a bigger convenience store now that has a new owner,
Okay. And the location of it was where?
on West St. Joseph Street in Lawrence.
Is it, and you stated that it has been completely redesigned? Okay. In the 18 years that you worked as a cashier at the Marathon service station, have you ever seen anyone pull up to the gas pump, get out of their car, open up the trunk of their car?
Yes?
Have you ever seen anyone pull up to the
Where are
pump?
you going with
in an
this,
SUV,
dude?
get out of the car, open up the back hatch of the SUV?
Yes.
Okay. On multiple occasions, right?
Yes.
Didn't find anything suspicious about that either, would you?
No.
Okay. Now,
Oh my God, y'all. Even the state's attorney is like, where the F are you going with this? Look at the face she is making as he is asking this stupid question that makes no sense to anyone. She is like, oh my God, he's really doing it.
didn't find anything suspicious about that either, would you?
No.
Okay. Now, on the date of January the 7th of 2007, what was the weather like?
It was a little bit chilly in the morning when I went into work. It was winter time still, so I would say cold.
Was it raining?
No, not in the morning.
Had it snowed? Was it snowing?
No. We had had snow prior, but it wasn't snowing that morning, no.
Was the sun out?
I think it kind of was a little bit.
Okay. Do you wear glasses?
Yes.
In 2007, were you wearing glasses?
I don't remember if I had my glasses. I think I probably did, yes. Yes.
You know whether or not you was wearing your glasses? That day on January the 7th of 2007?
No, I probably wasn't because I didn't need them as much back then as I do now.
Do you know what your vision is in 2007?
No, pretty well, I guess. I don't know.
You didn't know what your vision was?
No.
Did you have
Hey, no, Ray Charles. What she's saying is she didn't need them all the time. In fact, if she could go days where she didn't notice that, her vision was, discombobulated, she didn't need them. My guess it was her night driving was, being impacted and, she got glasses for that because that's usually the first time that you really struggle is night driving or driving in, less ideal light conditions. But this dingus he's gonna go full Tropic Thunder. He really is.
to wear your glasses to read or
Like I said, I didn't wear glasses as much back then as I do now. I just didn't. My vision was probably pretty good back then.
but you had to have glasses? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, did you know Miss Linda Stermer prior to January the 7th of 2007?
I knew
Yes.
of her, yes.
How did you know of her?
Like I said, we lived in a small town. I also worked a full-time job at the school. So I've seen them at sporting events, school events, in-town events,
Okay. Just as common residents of the area,
Right.
right?
Not close friends. I didn't know her on a personal basis, no.
You've never been to her house?
No.
Okay. Never met her husband, or
No,
had you?
at the gas station. I have, him and the boys used to rent movies there quite a bit.
Okay. And what all does the gas station sell?
Gas, alcohol, groceries, chips,
Lottery tickets?
yes.
Were you at the time part of the custodian of records there at the gas station?
Could you repeat that?
I say, did you have anything to do as the custodian of the records at the gas station?
No, I did not.
Did not.
No.
And you stated that the time that you referenced to on the receipt that was shown on the screen, that this time was 9:03, but you stated that was, or is it 10:03, 10:06:55, but you stated that wasn't the correct time?
Correct.
And That was because the owner didn't want to change.
She manually, when the time changed, she manually did not remember to change it in the register.
So it was an hour earlier
Yes.
that you would say that you're.
Holy God, why doesn't this man understand concepts? I swear to goodness, she went over this in direct. And this man is like, so you're telling me that the state of Michigan involves itself in the government bureaucracy, ridiculousness that is daylight savings time? I mean, at some point, if you would just listen to the read or during the direct, you would know this.
Your observation of what you saw of Ms. Stermer would
Yes.
have been 9:06, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, did Ms. Stermer come inside the store and have a conversation with you about any purchasing of any other items other than the gas?
She came in and purchased some items in the store, yes.
Okay, did she have a conversation with you?
She just said she was just picking, it was very nice of the lady that owned the station, that she carried grocery items there. It was very small talk.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the gas station we have closest to my home, and it serves a really, really small town and is actually the local post office. So it's the post office. It's got, a chicken restaurant, a Subway, and a couple other different things all in the gas station, because when you're a rural place, the convenience store might just be the most central place in your town to get all your stuff done. And Tammy Fayette, the reason it has taken so long is technically her conviction wasn't overturned until 2018. So this case happened in 2007, and she was convicted for the first time in 2010. Then in 2018, due to, lack of effective counsel and things like that, she was given this retrial. And then around the time that the retrial was getting started is when the coup happened. So I think we are finally now getting back to her. But yeah, it has taken a long time. Yeah, I get that one too. Well, sort of. I don't know that the chickens would like to eat their fellow chickens, even if they have been battered and fried, but they do sure taste delicious.
So the purchase of the gasoline, was it purchased inside the store or was it purchased at the pump?
That was purchased at the pump.
Was it purchased at the pump?
Yes,
With the same credit card that the
Yes.
other items inside the store was purchased with?
yes.
Okay. Now, where were you? Well, let me just go back. After Ms. Stermer purchased the items and left, you didn't have any reason to suspect anything about any unusual activity that occurred at that pump by Ms. Linda Stermer, right?
No, I did not.
Absolutely nothing that would give you any reason to think that anything was
Silence of the
done
chickens?
that would be suspicious, right?
No,
She was just a common customer like all your other customers, right?
correct?
Okay.
Where are we going with this?
And you heard about a fire later on that evening, right?
Yes.
But you didn't know where the fire was, right?
Not when I saw the fire trucks. No, I did not.
Okay. And when did you find out where the fire was?
When I spoke with my sister-in-law, who my nephew is a friend of one of the Stermer boys, and that's when I found out. It was much late into the evening.
Okay. And did you make a statement that you had seen Ms. Stermer earlier that day at the service station, at the gas station?
I don't think I did.
You didn't?
I don't think so.
That wouldn't have been something that would have caught your attention, the fact that you had seen the mother of one of the
That's a good
sons
question, Chuck.
whose house had been burned? that you had seen them?
When I was on the phone with my sister-in-law, I said I had seen them in the morning. I had seen them in the day, but I said that's horrible. I mean, it was enough out of sadness. I had seen, you know.
Yeah, but my question is that in a small town, you hear the fire trucks, you later on find out that the fire was at a location of a home of someone that you didn't know real well, but you knew them as town residents
Right.
because of the school activities, and that you had also seen one of...
Wait a minute, what in the crime of fashion is going on here? I just realized this man is wearing plaid with another one of those pinstripe or freaking terrible candy cane. Tammy Fayette, no, he cannot ask things any better. You are going to be confused because he is asking questions that the state asked during their their direct. And what in the name of all the fashion crimes that have ever crimed is this plaid jacket with a periwinkle shirt with a navy and purple tie? I am all the confusion. I mean, cannibalistic chicken powder sounds pretty cool. I would buy it just 'cause.
the parents at your location where you worked that morning. So when your sister called you and told you...
Your Honor, is this a question?
Well,
I mean, I
yes, it's going to be a question,
think
Judge.
Very long testimonial here.
Well,
You
it's
just
going to be a
asked
question, Judge.
If you could get to the question, please.
Did
Yeah, could you get to
tell
it?
your sister that you had seen Miss Stermer earlier that day
Asked
at the
and
store?
answered. She just answered that she did say that. She said, you know, how horrible she saw him. She already answered the question.
Did she answer the question, Judge?
I will let you ask that last question. Okay.
Yes.
No,
Just the
Judge.
question.
Yeah, just the question, your last question about, did you tell?
Did you tell your sister that you had seen Miss Stermer earlier that
I
day?
said to my sister-in-law, oh my God, I had seen her this morning. Yes.
You
And I
did?
said, what a horrible tragedy.
Tragedy.
And you told her that you seen her?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. That's all I want to know. Now,
No, don't you get snippy. You ask the most stupid question in the most meandering, stupid way, and then gonna act like the rest of us are stupid because we don't understand what the hell the question was. Don't you just act snippy like I was just asking questions, like I'm, Jesse Ventura over here. You have annoyed. Ugh.
who was the other person that you stated that you had a conversation with about Miss Stermer?
I don't understand what he's getting at.
Did you have a conversation with someone else after you talked to your sister?
It is never a good thing when the witness looks at the judge like, I got nothing. You know what he's talking about? Because, when the witness is so unclear as to what you are trying to get at with your questions, and this is supposed to be your job, you kind of suck at it, dude.
About Miss Stermer coming to the gas station?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Okay. How did you wind up having a card at your home from Detective Maciosky?
Probably from Detective Wydick.
Okay, Detective Wallace.
Or a policeman Wydick, I don't know. A deputy, I should say.
Did you have a conversation with him?
Not that day, no.
But I just said, did you have a conversation?
I wouldn't really call it a conversation. He would just come in and ask me if I spoke to anybody from the sheriff's department. I would say, no, Tim, no, I haven't.
Let me ask you this. Was it a common practice for this detective this deputy to come into the gas station and ask you, had you had a conversation with anybody from the police department or the sheriff's department?
It was common for Tim to say anything he wanted to people. He was a very open person, I guess.
Okay. And being an open person, he just asked you, did you know what?
He asked me if I was in contact with anyone, and I said, if they need me, they know where I'm at, is all we ever spoke.
Why would he ask you if you had been in contact with
Objection, Your
anyone?
Honor.
I don't know.
Because it's a big ass crime with a guy turned into the human effing torch. So maybe a detective in the local police department who knows that you saw Linda Stermer at the start of that day is saying like, hey, has the detective been on to chat at you? Ask you about your mom and them? that kind of Southern thing. And, while they were debating, whether Duke's or Hellman's was the better mayonnaise, he's like, hey, you know what? By the way, Miss DeLoach, had the sheriff been around to talk to you and them about, the trial? And she'd have said, well, no, they haven't. And he has said, you know what? I'm going to tell the detective that he need to talk to you and them about this. So let me remind him while I get into the station. This man is going to make me start day drinking again.
No,
One moment, that does call for speculation, I'll sustain.
Did he tell you why he was asking you if you'd been in contact with anyone?
No.
And who was the anyone he was talking about? If you know.
This calls for speculation, I'll sustain the objection.
And at some point in time, you stated that you received a card, you had a card at your house,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
In your door
Yes.
from Detective Macioski.
Correct.
And you contacted Detective Macioski.
After I received the card, yes, I did.
What did you have to go and have an interview with Detective Macioski?
Yes.
Where?
Well, I
At the
pretend to
sheriff's
for
department in his
Lynn.
office.
So what did you tell Detective Macioski?
I answered all the questions that he had for me.
He already had questions for
Well,
you?
he asked me, did I work that day? I said yes. He asked how long I was at the gas station that day. He asked if I had waited on Mrs. Stermer. I said yes. So, yes, I guess the basic questions he needed answered.
And that was it?
Yes.
You didn't tell Detective Macioski that you saw Miss Stermer putting gasoline in any other part of the car other than the gas tank?
Whatever questions he asked me, I answered to him. I don't remember exactly what questions word for word he asked, but the gas was discussed that day.
He said what?
I said the gas was discussed that day. He asked me if she purchased gas, and I said yes.
It's Detective Maziowski. And Volstorm, I kind of like her hair. I think it's funky in a cool way. It's got dramatic chunks and low lights. I kind of like it. But to be fair, as Volstrom, that is a dangerous question to ask a woman at the start of her Snapped episode. Like, can you pick a hair color? I mean, that's how all those, low-speed chases on the 7 p.m. news start.
Okay. And did you tell him that you saw anything unusual about her purchasing the gasoline?
I just told him that she pulled up to the pump, she opened up her back window, just like I had said, and she put the hose into the vehicle and started pumping the gas into the vehicle.
In the vehicle?
Yes, not through the gas tank, into the back window of the vehicle.
And you saw that?
Yes, through the window,
Where were you at in the gas station?
right in front. There was the whole front of the gas station was windows.
Do you recall testifying in a prior hearing in this case?
Yes, I do.
You were asked in a prior,
Oh my God, Cletus. If you wanted to have her deposition and impeach her with prior statements, you should have been open to the mother flippin' flapjack page. Look, this woman don't even want to be here. She put on her best 1980s, eyeliner on. She got her hair all did. And you are over here wasting her time where she could be, playing bingo. And this dude is a mess. He makes B. Ivory Lamar look like, well, Ben Shapiro. Now, there's a thing that I never thought I would say, but I would actually deal with B. Ivory Lamar for the entire Edgecombe trial again than deal with this man.
hearing,
Your Honor, I'd ask that he ask this in a proper form, and he wants to ask if she remembers testifying, and she needs to have her memory refreshed before he just starts going on to the question.
I just asked her, did she recall testifying in a prior hearing, Judge? And if she would just let me
Now, yes, you might be asking yourself at this particular moment, is this man in fact a lawful law lawyer and not a third-party intervener? And no, this man is in fact a practicing bar-associated member of the lawyer and legal profession, like Lionel Hutz.
You recall testifying in a prior hearing in this case?
Yes, I do.
You recall testifying that the gas the gas was being pumped in the car?
Through the window, I said yes. Pardon me?
Do you recall testifying at a prior hearing in this case, right?
Yes.
And you were asked, you didn't actually see gas being pumped into anything, did you?
I did not see a container or a can, no.
I'm sorry, you said you didn't see a container or?
A container or a gas can,
Or can.
yes.
And your answer was
Something.
no, right?
Pardon me?
And your answer was no, right? You
Yes.
didn't see,
No.
did you see Ms. Stermer making any other type of moves other than just standing there by the car?
No, I did not.
You did not?
No. She was just standing there.
And you never saw a container?
No, I did not.
Oh, for the love of God. Now this man is going to come up with, if I don't eat my shoe, he's going to say, well, geez, Mrs. D. Loach. Well, if you had seen a woman just pumping a gas through a window, would you say nothing? And she's going to say, look, this is America. I figure if a moron wants to put gasoline into their car through their window, then who am I to stop them? Personally, as long as I don't have to pay, for them to be a moron, I'm okay with it. Yamaha biker, the things we have learned in this trial is amazing. She does sound like Kitty Foreman. Now, for those of you who haven't been suffering this trial, I
And
would like you
after she
to
purchased
know
the gasoline, did she come back into
that
the
this is
store?
at 1.25. Listen to this man at 1. Now, I won't keep it at normal for very long, but I want you guys to listen to him on normal.
Yes, she did.
And purchased some other items?
Yes.
And
That was a full 30 seconds where nothing happened because this man was not prepared. Now, I'm not going to listen to this on normal because, well, I'm trying not to be a masochist for Lent.
you only had one interview with Detective Maciowski in reference to this, is that right?
Yes, we did meet at another time, and that was about going over this a little bit. He was asking me to explain that to him, and he came to the gas station to have me explain that to him.
Explain this receipt to him?
Yes, to break it down for him.
You didn't have the receipt when you went to his office?
We didn't talk about the receipt at the office, no.
So you didn't even talk about the amount of gasoline that she had purchased or the items that she had purchased?
We had talked about her purchasing gasoline and items, but not a specific amount or anything. We did not talk about this part, no.
Okay. Do you know if there was a surveillance camera at the service station?
I don't think that we used to have a old VHS tapes that Sue used to use, but I don't know if it was working, if it was even still in working order or used then at that time. No, I don't.
You don't recall if it was operating on that day?
That has been asked and answered.
Did Mr. Maciowski ask you for any surveillance tapes?
No, he did not. He didn't ask me for any of this kind of stuff. He dealt with that with the owner.
Do you know if the owner,
Objection, Your Honor.
She's not gonna know.
Oh, I haven't heard his question yet.
I could have said, do you know the owner's name, Judge?
I'm waiting to hear your
Yes.
question.
Do you know if the owner provided any type of surveillance tape to Mr. Maciaski? If you know.
I don't know any of that, sir.
But you had seen a surveillance tape there at the assistant that was installed at the service station, right?
We used to just see the VCR tapes in the back room. They weren't, I don't know if they were used or not.
But you knew that there was a VCA system.
Yes, yes.
Was it operating that day?
I don't know.
She said she doesn't know.
She doesn't know, and she's not the boss. She was, and I quote, a cashier in 2007 who worked at the gas station. So not only she would not be required to take in a receipt to go see the detective, and she would not be required to know anything about the VHS, tapes. She wouldn't know that because she's not the owner and she's not a manager. I doubt that they let the cashiers work on their, security feed, considering that, the security feed is probably there to make sure that they aren't stealing as well. Welcome, Robert James. And we are just right on track for Monday, and the defense is pissing me off. I know you're shocked.
I have just a second, Judge.
A quick comment.
It looks like the lawyer Wolf Mueller might be wanting to take over from his, ineffective assistant of counsel. Oh God, they are trying to walk this man through his testimony. How can you be so bad at lawyering? You've been doing it for years, sir. Man's gonna take 15
Do you know what the
years.
price of gasoline was in 2007?
The receipt here says $2.16, 0.9 a gallon. Maybe? I don't know.
Is your answer, you don't know? Or is it
Just
$2?
what the receipt says, I said.
Okay. And you said that she purchased $11 worth of gasoline, right?
1101.
Yes, okay. And do you
This man is the living embodiment of this meeting could have been an email. I am sure that if he had just typed out his questions and had someone altogether different ask them, we would already be done. This man is the living embodiment of this could have been done with a fucking email so I don't have to deal with morons. This man wasted more time. We could have had this be a 3-day trial. Change my mind.
recall when you was actually by year that you were contacted by Detective Maciaski?
Back in June of '09, I think it was.
June of '09,
Yes.
2 years later. Is that right?
Well, June.
Okay, Tammy, nothing bothers me than a person who will ask a question that had just been paying attention, has just been answered in the last 10 minutes. There is nothing that bothers me more than that, because I'm like, hey, morons, if you just paid attention and not run your mouths, you would know what the teacher's trying to ask you. It was just said literally there. Now, that being said, I got in trouble a lot for yelling at other kids to stop asking dumb questions in school. Apparently that is not nice, and it doesn't, engender a safe learning environment. And I'm like, yeah, you would all be generally safe if you weren't so stupid. So, stop asking dumb questions.
Do you recall from a previous hearing that you stated that you went to the police and
Not
told
the police.
Deputy Wyrick that you thought you may need to talk to the police?
No, like I said, Tim would come in the gas station and ask if I had spoke to them. I never went to him.
You never went to him?
No, no.
But Detective Wyrick, Deputy Wyrick, that would have also been 2 years after the fire of January the 7th of 2007, right? Approximately 2 years. And
When
so-
I spoke with Mr. Wydick?
Yes.
No, Tim would ask that all the time, coming in the gas station. And that was right after the fire, too, numerous times when he would come in there. I mean, like I said, I did not go to him. He came to me.
When you say he came to you, he was just coming in, as you stated, that because he was just
A customer.
an outgoing person, that he would just make a conversation?
Yes, he would come in for his free coffee and stand there and ask
Free coffee?
questions. Yes, they would
Oh,
always.
for the love of, that's how we're gonna get it. The defense is gonna, equate the free coffee that they got at the marathon. Now, this woman gave them all free coffee so that they would all conspiratize against Linda Stermer. Oh my God. And we will continue in this regrettable fashion for another about hour. So gird your loins, people, gird your loins. Drink them if you got them, smoke them if you got them. We're going to be here for a while.
Get free coffee.
And you were just basically engaging with him in conversation about, have you heard anything about this fire? Or have you heard anything about the Stermer's fire? He would just kind of open up a conversation periodically when he came in with you. Is that correct?
Like that, something like that.
yeah.
Not exactly, but
Right, yeah.
you had to know Tim.
So it pretty much was kind of like a information gathering conversation, right? If you heard anything, if you knew anything, right?
No, I think it was more or less, has anybody talked to you? And I would tell him, no, Tim, but if they need to find me, they will find me. And I would
Let's
just
see
leave it
how-
go with that. I did not want to be in that, you know.
We're going to be too fast
Need
with
you
her.
or find you in
Yes.
reference to just...
To speak to me,
because of the Stermer
yes.
Purchase some gasoline, right?
Just to speak to me, yes.
Yes, yes. Okay. And then Detective Maciowski waits until 2.5 years, and then he contacts you with a card at your residence.
He
Is that
actually
correct?
sounds semi-normal.
He left a card at my residence. Yes, he did.
I did test that out. Oh my God, if you have to be walked through how to lawyer this much,
I
then
want to clarify. So you said that Detective Maziowski contacted you in June of '09, right?
Yes,
So when defense counsel said that was 2 years, it was actually a year and a half.
correct.
And then when defense counsel said it was 2.5 years, it was actually a year and a half.
Yes.
So was that confusing?
No, not really.
You knew it was still June of
Yes,
'09.
right.
And Tim came in the gas station a lot?
Yes,
Regular customer?
uh-huh,
Regular of Lawrence?
right. Whether he was working or not, he was in there all the time.
And at the time of the day of the fire, you just knew the fire happened?
Correct.
You didn't know any details about the fire?
No.
You didn't know what had happened?
No.
You didn't know any details of the investigation?
No, I did not.
All you knew at that time is that Ms. Stermer came in and bought $11 worth of gas and bought some breakfast or some groceries.
Correct.
So you said that owner, I believe you called her Sue?
Yes.
Had the whole front window was all glass?
Yes,
And was that part of your security policy of watching out there and turning on the pump when it dinged?
Right,
And I think
yes.
you had testified that it was then something you did to make sure you knew who it was in case they drove away.
right, because she was getting to the point where if you didn't pay attention to what was going on, people drove off with gas, she would always tell us, you're going to start paying for that.
So then you started
Paying
watching.
more attention.
And you were asked the question, have you seen others pump things into their trunk areas or the rear of their gas before, or the rear of their vehicle before?
Yes, but most people, when they would come in, they would always lay like their gas cans on the ground and pump them in, you know, and then wipe them off and then put them back in their vehicle. But yes, I did see some people pull up that way.
And one last question. When you then saw that ding and looked out and saw Ms. Stermer with the hose into the blazer, into the trunk area, did you continue maintaining constant surveillance until she came into the store?
No, I did not.
And what did you do then, once you saw her?
I wiped up. Like I said, she came in, the pump cleared, she started pumping. I did see how she started pumping with the hose in the back window. And then I just waited a few seconds, and then I just went around the counter to the right side, and I was wiping off the coffee counter.
So you weren't staring at her the
No,
whole time?
no.
Once you saw her pumping into the trunk, you started doing your work there?
Right.
And then she came in at a later time?
Right, as soon as the pump dinged, knew she was done, and then, she ended up coming in.
When did it ding? Would it ding when
When
somebody
you
hung it
hang the
up?
nozzle up, yes.
So you didn't see if she then put any gas into her vehicle?
No, I did not.
But you wouldn't know if she put any gas into her vehicle after she put it into the back of the trunk?
Correct.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, Chucky, so what the state is theorizing and wanting to show a link to is that Linda had allegedly this gas can in the back of her trunk, and instead of taking it out of the vehicle and maybe, being seen that she was filling up a gas can, she did it through her back trunk. So now, do not recommend this. Take the gas can out of your car, put it on the ground, fill it up, and then wipe it off before you put it back in your car. But that being said, I mean, she has said that she's seen people do that. Now, I don't recommend it if you don't want to win a Darwin Award, but I'm not your mom's, so.
Just want to clarify, Ms. Deloach. In January of 2010, you testified in this matter.
Those were
And
the days.
you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And I asked earlier so I can get a clarification. You stated that you didn't actually see gas being pumped into anything, did you? And your answer was no. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I did not see a container or a gas can, no.
Okay. And what we don't know is whether there was any gasoline being pumped at the time Linda was looking in the back of her vehicle. Isn't that true? And your answer was, I guess I don't. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
And do you further recall, and the question was, no guesses.
Your Honor, I would ask if he asked her.
Okay, we need to go back because I can tell that the state is also getting tired of this, let's say, latent Frenchness. Look at this state's attorney. We are just basking.
And the question was, no guesses.
Your Honor, I would ask if he asked her if
I would like to state that my soul looks exactly like the state's attorney right here. JKD Buck, I'm about there with you. I'd rather have my stomach pumped in reverse than listen to this moron. When the state can no longer hide their disgust with the defense.
if she remembers it and he needs to refer to memory versus reading, transcript.
We'll get to the question, just focus on the question that was asked and her answer if it's a prior inconsistent statement.
The question that was asked, you cannot say under oath that any gas was being pumped when Linda looked into the back of the vehicle. Isn't that true? And your answer was yes. You recall that testimony?
I remember her pumping gas into the vehicle is what I said, yes.
Okay. And the next question was, you never saw a container that day. Isn't that true?
Yes, I
And
told
the answer was yes, right?
I never seen a container.
Yes. Now, what are you talking about when the prosecutor asked you about this ding? What was the ding that you referred to?
When the pump is finished,
The ding is you. You are a ding-a-ling. That is what, in fact, you are a dinghy, and I wish you were in the ocean and you didn't, continue to assault us with dinginess. You know what's scary, you guys? Lori Vallow Dorkbell is getting ready to start, her trial pro se, and even her crazy ass is going to be better than him. Tanya, I feel you. I had to watch the entire latest season. Don't tell Mr. Mo. I watched ahead of the Great British Bake Off. Look, I just want to go over to England and get on that show. I'm not going to be good at it. Actually,
it dings in the inside.
It dings inside?
Yes. So then they're done at the pump.
Do you know what did? What did you say?
Oh my God. Oh dear God. This is why it takes another hour. Oh, okay. Well, we do have a break in there. Okay. Thank you, Jesus, because I didn't know if I could take this much longer. Okay, let's go ahead.
You know they're done at the pump.
Do you know what did? What did you say? When it dings, it means what?
It means the pump is done.
Okay,
They hung the nozzle up.
right.
Yes, and then it goes ding.
And that's heard inside.
It's from the register sound.
Okay. Did you tell Detective Maciowski that you didn't see any container?
Yes, I did.
Jesus,
told you did not see-
moldering. Yes, she did. Yes, this has been asked and answered. Judge, sanction this man. This man needs fines. This is why I couldn't be a judge, because I'd already have this man in leg irons for wasting my damn time.
See a container?
Yes, I did. I said I did not see. I saw the hose through the back window. I did not see it being pumped into a container.
And if gas was $2 a gallon, and she purchased, you stated $11 worth of gasoline, right?
11:01.
Okay. How many gallons was that?
I'm not sure exactly how much it was because I don't remember if it was unleaded. Was it regular? You know, I don't. Well, 4 point some gallons.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
To be fair, I wouldn't want to be a contestant. I would definitely want to be one of the hosts. So, I mean, also, have you seen Neil's sweaters on this season? Like, Mo's shopping list for sweaters. Yeah, it sounds about like a 5-gallon can. I mean, none of this was that controversial. I don't know why this took so long, other than the fact that this man cannot understand question. Yeah, double trial with his duplicate questions. For flip's sake, the witness is fed up with him too. Oh, yeah, Chucky, right. Then shock shackles.
And again, you didn't maintain constant surveillance, so you don't know if she then pumped anything into her vehicle.
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Kelly, are you done? Okay, anything else, you good?
No further questions.
And jury, do you have any questions of her? Okay, I've got questions coming in.
Ooh, I like that cobalt dress. That's pretty.
When did you interview, well, I think this was asked, but I'll ask again, I think it's crossed off, but when did you interview with Maciowski?
It was in June of 2009.
When did Maciowski go to the gas station to clarify regarding preparation for the hearing?
I don't exactly remember the day, but I do know it was when the gas station was with the new owner, so I don't remember, because I remember going in the back room with him when we did it that day, so I don't know exactly when.
Have you ever seen Todd or Linda Stermer fill a gas can while it was still in one of their vehicles before? Or did they commonly take it out and fill the cans on the ground outside the car?
I don't
If you know.
remember really. Like, Todd usually came in and rented movies with the boys. I never really waited on him with gas, so I don't know.
Were you the only employee working that morning?
Yes, I was.
Okay, thank you. Counsel, any questions of her?
I just want to just clarify my question. So one of the jurors' questions was, when did you meet with Detective Maciowski at the Marathon Station for preparation? Was that actually for preparation?
No, it was just, he was having me explain how this register tape was read.
So when you met with them at the sheriff's department, you didn't have a copy of the receipt to look at?
No,
And
no.
so it was like a second interview then to go over the receipt?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Kelly, any more?
Oh God, no. No, stop asking him. He's always going to say yes, and they're always going to be dumb.
Mr. Loach, you stated that Detective Maciowski came to the station, and it was after the new owners had acquired the station?
It was when the transition was different, yes, so it was when the new owner, so it was probably in, I would say probably '08, probably sometime in '09, when he came in to talk, because I'd already spoke with him once, so it was after that.
So did you speak to him in '09 and he came to the station in '09? Or did
I
you,
spoke with him at the sheriff's department in '09, yes,
in '09, the very first time?
yes,
And then he came to the station and the station had been redesigned
yes.
when he came to the station.
And I don't know what year that was, but I just know he had the register tape apart, and he was trying to have me explain to him how to read that. To explain it in his terms, you know what I mean, like the amount and, you know, how that was used.
Did y'all talk about any?
No, I was just showing him about the tape.
Nothing about the exact amount of gallons of gasoline that was purchased?
No,
right?
I just explained to him how to read
It's
the
on the
tape.
receipt.
And did Detective Macioski ask you anything about the VCH surveillance that you all had at the?
That was never discussed, no.
Never
Not
was
with me,
discussed?
no. That was something probably with the owner, he did, not me.
Okay, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, nothing further.
Jury, any other questions of her? None? May she be excused from her subpoena obligations?
I would ask that you please be excused, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense agree?
Yes, Your Honor.
User, okay. Thank you, ma'am, you're all done. Okay. Council, we'll take our afternoon break now? Okay. Okay, so jury, we'll take about a 15-minute break, and remember the rules.
The state's attorneys are going to go to drink. And, you know, Attorney Wolf is going to, you know, just make sure his partner isn't drinking, which, you know, would be a fine thing if it would happen, but I don't foresee that being a thing. Alrighty. And we are going into... All right, so this is Steve Wilson. This is going to be Farm Bureau Insurance, an attorney for their insurance. Now, again, there are some very weird things in this case. And one of the weirdest things has to be with the insurance. Now, the insurance was not paid up to date when the fire happened. Now, according to Linda, and I think State Farm is going to confirm this, she was basically told, you know, go to the courthouse, pay what you owe in arrears, and we will consider you, you know, paid in full and cover you for this fire. Now, I have never heard of an insurance post-dating your policy to when you can pay for it. So I have a lot of questions. Hopefully, Jolt Cola needs to come back. Only, you know, Jolt Cola 0, because I need that stuff in my life right now. You did not miss much. No, Alice G, you didn't.
Okay, we're back on the record. Everyone's here but the jury. Any matters to address before we bring in the jurors?
I know, Your Honor.
Anything?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, bring in the jury.
No tab. We can stop tab from making.
Welcome back, jury. Ms. Ivy?
Thank you, Your Honor. People call Steve Wilson to the stand, please.
If you raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat, and once you're settled in, I'll move that microphone close to your mouth, and tell us your full name and spell the last, please.
Stephen Willison, Willison.
Thank you. Ms. Ivy?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Willison, what was your occupation in, actually, let me just start there. What is your current occupation?
I'm an attorney
And how long have you been an attorney?
since 1990.
And in 2007, were you working as an attorney?
I was.
And in what capacity?
I had my own law firm that did primarily work for insurance companies on property coverage matters.
And so when you say you did work for an insurance company, what was your primary role then with that company?
So we would help insurance companies determine their legal rights under the policy of insurance and determining whether or not a loss was covered typically, which most of my cases involved whether there was an intentional loss, which would not be covered by the policy of insurance, or if during the claims presentment process there was a material misrepresentation, which would also void the policy. So we would quarterback the investigation and the people, and then we would do what's called an examination under oath a lot of times, then we'd pass our recommendations on to the company, and then they would make their own decision on the claim.
Can you explain to the jury what an examination under oath is?
Sure, it's a lot like, you may have heard of depositions, but it's a lot like that, although the court rules don't apply. There's a provision in the policy of insurance, and every policy of insurance, that says you have to participate in this process called examination under oath, where we get to ask you questions under oath with a court reporter present, and have you give us your side of the story, explain things that we need to know about. We get into some of the details of what was going on before, during, and after the loss. It's kind of their chance to present their side of the story to the insurance company, and it's our chance to find out some details that maybe we don't have yet in the investigation.
And are these examinations under oath, are they recorded?
They are. There's a court reporter present.
And then are they transcribed?
And they are transcribed.
And did you have an opportunity to interview Ms. Linda Stermer?
Yes, we did an examination under oath in 2 parts with her.
In 2 parts? And
Yes.
when do you recall the dates of those?
I believe the first one was in February of 07. I believe it was January 7, 07 was the fire. I think February 07 we did the first one. I think the second one was October of 07.
And both of those were transcribed?
They were.
I'm going to show you what's been marked People's Proposed Exhibit 35 and 36. If you could just take a moment and look through those and see if you recognize those.
Ooh, we have binders, 3 ring and looks like 2 inches if you're into office supplies. And here is a 1 1/4 inch. I shouldn't know so much about binders.
These appear to be the transcripts of those examinations under oath, although these particular copies seem to have some redactions, some things that were apparently agreed to be taken out of them.
And so other than the redactions, the transcripts then are, there haven't been altered or changed other than those redactions from your original transcripts?
It would not appear so, no.
And Your Honor, at this time, I would move to admit People's Exhibit number 35 and 36 into evidence.
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you. And as part, I want to, as part of your interviews in February and October, were you able to work with Ms. Stermer and draw out a map?
I believe particularly in the first one, we did ask, as she was describing where things were, both on the property and in the house, we had her draw out maps. I believe I had her sign them and made them exhibits to that examination.
So they're actually an exhibit then to those transcripts?
Correct.
And they're included in those transcripts?
Yes.
So I'm just going to show you a copy, and if you could just verify if that's been included in those transcripts and if that's a fair and accurate representation of what is in those transcripts.
Yes, I don't think I saw the exhibits in the binder, but yes, this was part of the transcript, this exhibit 4. And EUO exhibit 3. 3 was the one that we had her sign on the inside of the house, and EUO exhibit 4 was the one that we had her draw of the property, driveway, things like that.
Your Honor, just to be safe, I'm going to mark this then as People's Proposed Exhibit 37, just in case it's not included in those binders. And at this time, I would move then to admit the map that's included as part of the transcript, but we'll admit it separately. And there are 2 pages.
No objection. I do see that those are the last 2 pages of exhibit 36.
So, Your Honor, then I would withdraw the new number of 37. We'll go ahead and just not to confuse the record, we'll keep it as Exhibit 36. It's just 2 pages out of Exhibit 36. At this time, Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to publish the map to the jurors. And I do have, may the record reflect, I have 15 copies here, 1 for each juror as we're going through transcripts.
Okay.
An EUO, that's your examination under oath, is that correct?
Yes, EUO, examination under oath. So it's just a shorthand term of art in the industry.
And just to be clear, you had referred to this map then as an exhibit in your transcript, and then that is what that exhibit sticker is on that map.
Correct.
So not an exhibit sticker from today's hearing.
It is not, yeah, that is not a trial exhibit number. That was an EUO exhibit number. We had several documents that we collected during that process.
Thank you. So I'm going to have permission of the public, then the transcripts, Your Honor. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and then put these up. We're going to start out with the February 27th of 2007 transcript.
Sure.
And we'll put that up on the screen. I'm going to start then, just have you verify the first page. You don't have to read the first page, but if you could just then verify the parties present and the date.
Sure. This occurred on February 27 of 2007. I was there. Mr. Jeff Getting was there, who was Linda Stermer's attorney. Rodney Thuma was a representative of the insurance company was there, and the court reporter was Rebecca Kerr from Network Reporting.
I'm going to have you go to page 3, and I'm going to have you start about a quarter of the way down where it says Mr. Willison. And if you could just read to the jury from that statement down.
Line 10?
Yes, line 10 down.
My name is Stephen Willison, and I am the attorney for Farm Bureau Insurance. We're here today to take your examination under oath. That is a process by which you participate in the company's investigation of your claim and the events surrounding this loss. This is probably going to be part 1 because it's far too early to have any discussions about the details of your claim, but we did want to get together relatively quickly and talk about the details of the fire. Everything you say is being recorded and eventually will be turned into a typewritten transcript. So it's very important that all of your answers are with words. If you nod your head like you have done recently, or you say, or you point to something in a photograph, I may understand what you're saying, but there's no good way to type that. So from time to time, I may ask you to clarify.
I'll have you continue then through line 14 on the next page, which would be page 4.
Okay, whether you meant yes or no, or to describe what's very obviously what you're pointing at, so that we have a clean record. Okay, and then she responded, I understand. And then I went on. It's also important you understand that you're under oath today. So just like if we were in a courtroom, all the penalties of perjury apply. But maybe more relevant to your insurance claim, you need to understand that the policy of insurance says that if you were to even try to mislead the insurance company, that can be a reason to deny your claim and void your policy. Even if you were the world's worst liar and no one believed you for a second, just the fact that you tried.
Sarah, so this is actually the insurance, and I do believe that the insurance, again, with the sort of issue with the non-payment and then saying that they would cover the fire after, she got the policy current, I think that they were looking for a reason to deny this fire, especially since they hadn't been paid up. And then I'm guessing things like Todd being, covered in gasoline, or at least his pants, socks, underwear being soaked with gasoline, which I think we can all agree on based on the evidence that's in this case, that there were, traces, or not traces, but there was gasoline to the point you could smell it, depending on how close you were. So the insurance is basically looking to say, something doesn't smell right about this case. And
Is
no
a reason
worries,
to
Sarah
deny it.
Adams.
Okay,
my
and she
brain
said yes.
was off
And you
yesterday.
said that in one of those statements that you thought it was far too early. Can you describe to the jury why you felt it was too early and why you were conducting it then in February and then again in October?
Sure. Obviously, we knew that this claim involved the loss of life and was a total loss fire and was probably going to be big and complicated. And so putting together a claim on a total loss fire can take some time. And you have to, if you think about every T-shirt that's in the attic and every little thing that's in your junk drawer, all has to be inventoried and valued and everything else. So that can take some time. But the facts of the fire, we wanted to get into early, and that's because we want to get to the root of it right away. If you are, if in this process you're going to choose to be honest with us, then your memory will be freshest then. And if you're going to choose to be dishonest with us, then you will have the least amount of time to come up with the story. So we wanted to get the details of the loss, the fire first, and then we would come back later and talk about the claim.
And I'm going to have you go to page 9, line 11. And just have you read to the jury then 11 through 15.
I asked, now, the day of the fire, the day before the fire, who was living at your house? She responded, our 3 sons, myself, and Todd. I asked, what about Brittany? She said, no, she was living in Florida.
I'm going to have you then go to page 13, line 13 through 19.
Page 13, line 13, you said?
Line 13, page 13, line 13, read through line 19, please.
I asked, how long were you and Todd married? She said, we were married in 1993. I asked, how long had you been in a relationship prior to that? She said, well, I don't recall exactly how long we were in a relationship before that. We met in 1989. I asked, how did you meet? And she said, my work.
I'm going to have you flip to page 14, and if you could read the entire page, please.
Oh, sure. My question was, since you were married in 1993, have there been any periods of separation? She said no. Had either of you ever filed for divorce? She said no. Had either of you ever discussed divorce? She said yes. When did discussions of divorce start? She said, I don't know exactly. I know that. And then I interjected a month, a year, 10 years. She said we had talked about it a few times over the last couple of years. My question was, whose idea was it? She said, I think Todd brought it up first. I asked, and then I just need to get a little bit of the flavor of the dynamics of the relationship between the two of you. Todd wanted a divorce and you wanted to stay together, or was it the other way around? I mean, what was going on when you were discussing it but not doing it? She said, you know, I don't know that he was serious when he first brought it up. I think it was just kind of, I don't know, maybe we should get a divorce. I asked, when he first brought it up, what was your reaction? Did you agree or disagree? She said, I did not want a divorce.
And I will have you continue to page 15, if you could read that page for me as well.
At any point in time, did you decide you wanted a divorce? And she said, yes. I said, when did that start? And she said, maybe in the past year or so, and then we would talk about things and everything would be all right. And I asked, I know relationships are complicated, but was there any particular thing that was driving a wedge between the two of you? Any particular topic that was frequently discussed? She said, finances. I said, what about the finances? She said, we always seem to just not have enough money. I felt that Todd wasn't running his business as well as he could have been, and I felt he should work more. Am I doing this whole page?
Yes, please.
Okay. So then I asked, as in he wasn't doing it smart or he wasn't doing it often enough? And she said, well, I think that kind of goes hand in hand. I think if you're not doing it often enough, I don't think that's very smart. I said, that's true, but sometimes people work all day, all night, but they end up spending more than they make, and so it's not worthwhile. Other people are not working, and that's why it's, and she interjected, I just don't think he was putting enough effort. I said, okay, has there been any discussion of cutting back on any lifestyle or expenses, or selling the house and getting a smaller place, or selling off part of the property?
Now I'll have you read down to line 7.
And she responded, we had sold part of our property. I don't recall exactly what year. I think it may have been 2002 or 2003. So I asked, when you bought it, how much property did you own? She said, close to 120 acres. And I asked, and how much did you sell in 2002 or 2003? She said, around 90 acres.
I'm going to have you slip down then to line 18 and read just to the bottom of the page.
I asked, why did you sell the 90 acres? She said, so that we could build and pay off things that we owed. How much did you sell it for? She responded, I don't recall. I believe it was around the figure 99,000 is in my head for some reason, but I'm not sure if that was the exact amount. It seems that that was about, and I said, so about $1,000 an acre, and she said, I believe so.
And I'm going to have you read the next page.
Oh, I am so sorry, Deborah, and you know, hopefully you can move on. Yeah, there are some traumas that our body just simply can't deal with. And, you know, trying to force that can be just so detrimental. So I hope that, you know, you are honoring your body more and really putting those boundaries up. I get the push to want to help justice, but there are some people that our bodies just can't handle that kind of stress.
How much debt did you pay off with that? She said, I don't know. I asked, was it enough to pay off the debt and build the house? She said, no. I said, so what did you do for the rest? We borrowed. From whom? Bill Fleetwood was her answer. I asked, who's Bill Fleetwood? She said, he's a gentleman here in Lawrence that Todd has done business with quite a bit over the years. And how much did you borrow from Bill? I'm not positive. I know it went in stages. I'm thinking that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 100,000, but it was in stages as we needed different things. Do you still owe Bill today? She said, no. When did you pay off Bill? When we got our first mortgage on the property. I asked, when was that? She said, I believe that was in December 2003.
Oh, and congratulations on your son turning 7 months old, and you have kept him alive, which honestly, I think until they're 18 with boys is just a win. So thank you so much. CRPS, I will say this weekend was no fun. My body does not like cold rain, and that's all we had this weekend. And looks like coming into this week. So, you know, I have learned a thing or two about honoring my body, which is unfortunate. That you have to learn to really listen to what you can and can't do.
I asked how much was that mortgage? She said $200,000. Keep going.
Please.
So then I asked, so you sold property and got roughly $100,000. You borrowed another 100, and then you borrowed 200. So your cost of construction was $300,000. She said no. How much was the cost of construction? I asked. She said, I don't know. I asked, do you have an estimate? And she said, I don't.
I'm gonna have you continue reading to the bottom.
You seem pretty confident it wasn't 3, and she said, right. I said, so what was it? She answered, I really don't know. I know that we paid off a lot of debt with it. I know that Todd made some business investments with some of it as well. I asked, well, what is your best understanding of how much each of those categories was? She answered, I really couldn't give you a good guess. I said, okay, do you think you had $100,000 of debt? She said, no, I don't believe we had. 50,000? She said, maybe. Then I asked, what kind of business investments are we talking about? And she said, Todd would buy military surplus, gloves, clothing, and then resell them to stores. Boots, like Mickey Mouse boots, that kind of thing. Mop suits, carbon suits, and that kind of stuff in large quantities.
And I'll have you stop there. And if you could go to the next page at the bottom on line 24, just read those last 2 lines in the next page.
I asked if they got a building permit to build the house, and she said yes.
And I'll have you read page 20.
Did you get it inspected? And she said yes. And I asked, what do you have in front of you? And she said, I went to Associated Governmental Services and got these copies of I think they're everything that Todd turned in order to begin construction of our home. I asked to begin construction. She said, I guess you have to file permits and drawings and diagrams before you can receive a permit to even begin. It gives a layout, but there were changes, significant changes made to it that are not reflected in those drawings. I noticed after I picked it up yesterday. Who did these drawings, do you know? And she said, Todd. I believe that Mr. Fleetwood helped him. And so then we marked that as Exhibit 1 to the examination under oath. I said, we've marked those documents that you gave us as Exhibit 1, right? She said, yes. We'll be back to your floor plan in just a minute. That tells us that you filed these in 1998, right? She said, yes. That wasn't the impression I got of how long you were building it. So what was the delay between 98 filing and beginning to build? She said,
yeah, so this doesn't... I have a feeling Linda knew more about their finances, and that beyond everything else was a chief sort of, instigator of strife in the marriage. It sounds like Todd would have to buy things kind of randomly offhand, kind of never knowing when he was going to need, $50,000 for a bunch of gloves or that kind of thing. It doesn't... The money isn't adding up, and I am struggling within myself to try to think if I would do any better if Mr. Moe passed. And I think I would, only because this would have been, we talk about finances regularly. That being said, some marriages are different. One person has, full control of the finances and the other person lets them have it. And let's see. How soon after the fire was the interview? So this happened in February of 07, and the fire was in January of 07. So this happened the month after, and then there was another one in October, but this is the one from February. So this definitely is a motive. And then Ghost has a question. CRPS feels like your body has been crushed by a massive truck? Question mark. I had accident pain all over my body that was extremely painful years ago. I'm trying to understand it through my weird experience. Yes and no. What I can tell you is CRPS feels different on different body parts. So from, let's say, mid-calf, actually, I'll show my gams. It's going to be amazing. But I need a break from Insuranceology guy. Alrighty, you get to see my legs. It's gonna be amazing. Boom. Alrighty, so I know you are just all from here down on my leg, so well, I can't lift it up anymore, but basically from the lidocaine patch down on my leg, feels like I have frostbite. Now, from the rest of my leg, or from that point up to the rest of, I'm all tangled up in all my cords now. Well, I never claimed I was graceful. But from that point of my leg up to my hip, it can feel like an extreme sunburn, lightning strikes, and different things altogether. Yeah, lidocaine patches are expensive. I do have my, I have an Amazon subscription. I get the 40 count box and I'm done with them in a month. Guess where all the other lidocaine patches are? That's going to be our next quiz to get through the day. Where is Mo, having lidocaine patches? That being said, in other parts of my body, it presents as like a deep kind of, if you had gotten punched or hit really hard, it feels like a lingering bruise. It feels like a deep muscle kind of tissue bruise. And then some days it can just be so bad that even the breeze, even walking with my skirt, really is very sensitive. So if you had intense pain right from your accident, along with swelling and sensitivity to cold, I would say you could look at CRPS. Now, some CRPS, if it's caught and treated quickly, can be much more manageable with life. But it does sound like you did have some sort of nerve involvement, and I do know nerve damage can take a long time to heal. Yeah, so basically, Mr. Mo, he hates putting on my lidocaine patches. And I feel bad asking him to help me because the lidocaine patches are so cold that when he puts them on my skin, I know I'm going to go into full body spasm because it's just the temperature change and my body really doesn't react to cold. So he's like, I always feel so bad, like I'm hurting you. And I'm like, no, this helps. I just need you to do it. But my body's going to freak out on the cold. It's also temperature dysregulation. So I can go from being bone deep cold to so hot I feel like I'm going to vomit in the space of a couple seconds. It's really hard because I've been, cuddling with Mr. Mo, and then I've had to jump up, and now he is not upset about this, but I like shug off my shirt like I am, literally burning up from the inside. And he's like, yes, ma'am. And I'm like, oh, hell no, this is a hot flash and I feel like I'm going to vomit. So unless you want to be real close to me when this happens, I'm going to need you to leave me alone. So what I will say about CRPS is it's going to manifest differently in every single patient. And what is normal to me is going to be not normal to the other. I get heightened senses, sounds, smells, brightness of light, all that sort of thing really bothers me. And I do try to meet Mr. Mo and try to talk to him a lot more. What I can encourage you, and I'm not always been the best, this is total tangent time. If you do have chronic pain, tell your partner when they do help you. Tell them that they're not hurting you, that you appreciate them. Because as hard as it is for us to walk through this every day, I know it has to be that much harder to, watch someone you love walk through it. So what I am learning now more than I've ever known is, having open communication, being appreciative, and being really honest when your bad attitude. I have gotten this year, my big goal is to communicate effectively to Mr. Mo when when it's the pain talking, because I can get pretty hysterical when the pain is a lot because I can't process things. So it's like trying to deal with any stimulus when you're in full fight or flight. So Mr. Mo will be asking me questions and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to snap at you, but I can't understand what you're saying. And he's learned to understand that. And I've learned to communicate to him that I don't want to be sharp with you. I don't want to be a butt with you, but I can't process anything right now. I would love to hold your hand. I would love to be the wife you want right now, but I can't process anything else right now. And unless you're really honest, the other person doesn't know what's going on in your body. And absolutely, we will have to figure this out. I will tell you guys, I haven't done a lot of CRPS posting this time, just because this winter I have been incredibly blessed. I think the first 3 years that I had CRPS to not have a winter like I've had this year. And while I may have made peace with my condition for the most part, having this winter be such a write-off was just not something that I was ready to process openly yet. But I am getting to the point where, look, the sun is out. We might be getting, rain for forever. And y'all, I talked about the British baking show. Now listen, y'all, I was ugly crying yesterday. And this is the last I'm going to say about this. But they have this lovely, I think it's Slovakian woman on there called Nelly. And one of her big projects that they were doing this cookie like puppet kind of thing. And her cookie puppet theater was all about kind of this darkness in her life and the 5 children that she had lost through miscarriage. And she's like, in every dark forest, there's, a light, and it might be a teeny tiny light, but every day you walk a little closer to that light and you'll find the dawn. You really will. I mean, look, y'all, I'm telling you that had me ugly crying, not to mention Nelly is awesome. Look, she's my favorite. She should have won. It was a travesty. It was dark for cookie making, but she was also celebrating that she met her husband and she has 2 living children, but that those 5 children, that darkness, that sadness, deserve to be celebrated because it got her to the person she was today. All of our darkness doesn't define us, but God can help us be a light when someone else is going through a dark time.
Todd had a knee surgery, and so he had to stop working on it completely. And so it sat for a few years.
I'm going to have you continue.
I asked her, what did you do in 1998 to finance the beginning of construction? She said, well, the original plan was just to build it as we could afford to build it. And so we had a basement done, and we paid cash for that. Where did you have that cash? She said, what do you mean where? I said, how did you have that lump sum? She said, Todd, through working, just saved that amount and paid for it. So a rich uncle didn't die, you didn't get an insurance policy claim or something like that. She said, no. Then I asked, so how far had the house gotten before he had knee surgery? She said the basement was completely concrete, what was to be concrete, and then he had the trusses, I believe they're across the basement. The thing that was going to hold up the first floor? She said, yes, and that was it. And then when did you restart? Answer, I believe that was in 2002. So it sat for 4 years. She said probably 3 or 4 years.
And I'm going to have you go to page 22 and continue reading that page, please.
And why 3 or 4 years? She said, because Todd's knee surgery, he was unable to work, and we got into substantial debt at the time. So then I asked, that kind of brings us back to you were in debt, you sold some property, you borrowed the mortgage. It sounds like you were back in debt again at the time of the fire when all this stress was going on in your marriage. Or was it just a matter that you were heading back toward that again? Her answer was, I don't think we've ever been out of debt. We'd have some paid down, but I think we were just in debt continuously. I asked, was there ever a discussion of bankruptcy? She said, no. I said, why not? She answered, because we just felt people that filed for bankruptcy are ignoring their debts, and it hurts you more in the long run if you don't continue to try and pay off your debts. I said, so at the time of the fire, what would you estimate your debt was? She answered, I don't know. Maybe, I'm not really sure. Do you want the mortgage included in that? And I said, let's set the mortgage out for now. She said, okay, maybe $100,000 or so.
And I'm going to have you then go to page 23, and then
I'm so sorry, Ghost. I can't imagine that pain. And, you know, I can't. And I know women that, you know, every month is that hope that maybe this will be the time, and it isn't. And I am just sorry. And I grieve with you. I may not understand your loss, but I know it sucks. So I'm sorry. And I have never heard of grating avocado seed and putting it in a spray bottle. I'll have to try that. I'd never tried it. I don't like avocados, but I'd be willing to. Now, is it, okay, it's the pit. Okay, I can buy one of them and try that.
start at line 8, and then just read down.
I asked her where the $100,000 was owed to, and she said Todd had received loans from family members. I asked which family members. She said his mother. I asked Sandra. She said yes. I believe that was about $30,000. His sister Kathy was the most recent, $25,000. His brother Brad, $7,000. What was Kathy's last name? Martone Stermer. When you said Stermer, you saw that I was right by Brad, right? I'm sorry, Brad Stermer, correct. Medical, she said medical bills. I asked, how much do you figure that was? She said, I don't know, maybe $10,000. A truck around $14,000 or $15,000. Mechanic who has the truck, $3,500.
And I'll have you stop there and just go to page 24. And if you could start on that page, please.
I asked how long he had the truck. She said 7 months. I asked if there was anything else. She said, I'm sure there is. I just can't think of what it is right at this minute. The truck, who's that with? She said, do you mean who it's financed through? First Community Federal Credit Union, I believe. Peace, or FC, First Community, I believe. Or no, First Federal Credit Union, sorry. So I asked, what are your payments on that? She said, close to $500 a month. I asked, are you making monthly payments to mom, sister, brother? She said, no. I asked, do you owe any of your friends or family money? Meaning her instead of Todd. She said, I borrowed $1,000 from my grandmother. I asked, what's her name? She told me Frances Pierce. I asked if there was anyone else, and she said no.
And then I'm going to have you jump down to line 23, and that page, read that to the bottom of the page and continue into the next.
Were there any other wedge issues in your marriage besides finances? And she said, the horses that I had. I said, okay, what was an issue about the horses? She answered, I just think he would get, I just know that he would get frustrated sometimes at the number of horses I had and the work that was involved in taking care of them. He just got tired of that. What about the expenses? She said, no, he never complained too much about that. I asked, how many horses do you own, or did you own at the time of the fire? And she said the number of horses that were at the property at the time of the fire was...
Okay, now I've never had horses, but I've heard that they're sort of a finicky animal to keep. Like, as you know, even though the idiom is healthy as a horse, I've heard they're really easy to get like their stomach turned and things like that. I don't know. I'm not a horseologist. I didn't go through that pony stage like most girls did. I went through a My Little Pony stage that went to a troll doll stage and then a Cabbage Patch doll stage, but I really didn't have that pony thing.
12.
And I'll have you stop there, and then if
That's
you
what I
want to go
thought,
ahead and
but-
switch now to page 33, on line 21, if you'll just read the bottom 5 lines of that and continue on to the next page on 34.
I asked her, what was the most you had been at in your marriage? She said 49. I said, 49 horses? And she said, yes. I asked, do you have the facilities for 49 horses? And she said, I leased land for them.
Living life with F&D. I have a malformation called a sepia uterus, in which the septum completely splits. So I actually do know something about this. So normally your uterus is going to kind of look like a light bulb. Now you can have a bicorneal uterus, which kind of looks like, well, if you put it together, like a heart. So now what she has, so the septum kind of comes down a little bit, and it's almost like you had two uterus. They didn't fuse in the middle to make that pear shape. And then it sounds like what you have is kind of just two separate uteruses. And that sounds like hell. I am sorry. That just sucks out loud. We were so lucky with my little mini-me niece. Her mother had a, bicornea uterus, and we were really unsure as to whether she was going to be able to carry, fully, and she did. And I have a lovely niece who looks like she should be a part of my pile, to be honest. But, look, I'm just saying my genes run strong. Like, kids that aren't even mine look like me. I don't know if I became a mother of the entire universe, but things have happened.
And when was the last time you
49
had 49 horses? She said, I believe it was in 2002.
And I'm going to stop you there. If you can switch to page 45 for me, please, on line 12. If you could start there and read to the bottom of the page.
I said, now we talked about issues in your marriage, we talked about finances, we talked about horses.
That is
Anything
fascinating.
else? She said, pretty much no. I guess that pretty much sums it up. So then I asked, let me go through some other categories. Did either of you have any problems with drugs or alcohol? She said, Todd has had some addictions over the years. I said, like what? She said, Vicodin. And when was he addicted to Vicodin? She said, about the time that he had his knee surgery, back when that permit was first gotten, when he blew his knee out. And how did he get past that? She said, I talked to his doctor and had the doctor change our prescriptions. Because I had shoulder surgery right before Todd had his knee surgery, and so the doctor prescribed both of us Vicodin. Keep going.
I'm going to have you skip down then to line 11 and read to the bottom of the page.
What other addictions has he had? She said he has smoked marijuana before and sleeping pills. I asked, he used or been.
Now, it is important to note that Todd Stermer's toxicology came back as only showing caffeine in his blood, and then in his urine there were the byproducts for hydrocodone, but he had been prescribed the hydrocodone cough syrup from his doctor. So, and what the medical examiner explained about that is the way the toxicology works, the drug is going to get out of your blood system quicker than it is your urine, since that's where your body excretes all of these byproducts. So basically, from what the medical examiner said, despite Linda stating that he had taken a lot of his medication the day of the fire and was groggy and out of it, basically what he said is that that medicine should no longer have been affecting him at the time of his, death. So it depends on, what they're going to show as to if she can have any other sort of evidence that he had any sort of addictive personality issues. And Darlene Wesley said, I had a bicornea uterus. I had 7 miscarriages before they found out I had it repaired. I had to have my kids by C-section, and they said if I had any labor, it could be deadly for both of you. Well, I'm so glad that you guys, all 3 of you, are safe and, in the world, and you got it fixed. So, poor Chucky, I'm sorry.
Addicted to. She said the sleeping pills, I believe he was addicted to. The marijuana, I kind of think he was addicted to that for a very long time, but then he was able to quit smoking it for a long time. He smoked it since then, but not on a daily or regular basis. I asked, sleeping pills? She said yes. I said, what was he using, or when was he using those? And she said the few weeks before the fire. And do you think he was addicted to those? And she said yes. And before then, also, he had been addicted to them. It's been a couple years.
I'm going to have you go on to page 47 and continue on.
When was the last time that you saw him take a sleeping pill? She said the weekend of the fire. The day of the fire? She said, I think it was the night before, the day before. I asked her when. She said, when I got home that night, he took that and then his medicine for his ear infection that he had. I said, what kind of sleeping pill did he take? And she said, Ambien CR. I asked if that is over the counter. She said, no, it's a prescription. I asked, did he take any that morning? She said, I don't know. Did you see him take any medications that morning? She said, I seen him take his cough syrup, and I know he took some pills, but I don't know which pills he took. I asked several pills. She said, I don't know. I said, you said some pills. I'm just trying to get an idea of what you saw. She answered, I just saw that he had his bottles next to him and he opened them and took his medicine. I don't know. What bottles were there?
I'm of two minds about this because having lived with someone with an addiction, I could probably tell you in the moments when I cared, when I thought that, my support would have helped with his addiction, I could have told you exactly what he was getting and how much he was taking of what I knew about. But honestly, when you deal with someone who has an addiction problem, you just get tired of messing with it. It's always a fight. It's always, a knockdown drag out. It's always, why are you always being mean to me? Don't you know that I do this because you're always stressing me out? So you just get to the point where you don't care to have that fight anymore. So you don't pick, you don't, that's, just all of that. So maybe he did have an addiction to medications, but I think we can all agree that whatever Todd's demons were, even if he was a jerk as of a husband, he didn't deserve to die the way he did. And more things are coming out, and the more Linda talks about Todd, it sounds like she was married to a person she didn't like. Like, don't forget about love. She didn't like the man anymore. All the things she does in, the statements that she's taken always paints Todd in the worst light from the get-go. She, talks about him fussing at her, him being mean to her, him always, laying hands on her, none of which is documented. I just have a really hard time when you can't say not one good thing about a person.
What was in the bottles? She said, I don't know what the drugs were. There were some that were prescribed by the doctor for his ear, and, I don't know.
And go ahead and continue then until the bottom of the page, please.
All right. So then I keep going. I asked, like painkillers or like antibiotics? And she said, I think they might have been antibiotics or antihistamines. I'm not sure exactly which. Which else was there? She said, that's all I can recall sitting right there. Any sleeping pills there? She said, I don't think they weren't there. They were in the bathroom. I don't know if he took any of them. Did he act like he was under the influence of any drugs at any point the day of the fire? She said he was loopy, but he had been. He had been that way for the last couple of weeks. He had, displayed where he was just kind of doped up, kind of. I don't know how else to describe it, just loopy, and like he'd be talking and then he would just stop in the middle of a sentence and then come back to it minutes later or something, as if there was no pause. Just kind of weird. My son described him one day as being stoned. I asked, did you ever confront him about it? Did you ever ask him what he was using? She said, yeah. I said, what did he say? She said, not to worry about it. It wasn't any of my business.
I'm going to have you go to page 49.
Let's see. I do believe this was from Friday. Yes. Because, yes, this was Friday because we didn't finish up Friday. And then we'll be going into the next day. For the love of goodness, I don't know why it is that I can't keep track of things other than the fact that Court TV and Law and Crime have these dated on two completely different time schedules. So I'm sticking with Court TV for the rest of this. They did do toxicology, Chucky. So in his blood, all they found was caffeine. In his urine, he did have some of the byproducts of his body having processed out that cold medicine with hydrocodone. So basically what the medical examiner had kind of explained, when the body is, under the effects of the drug, it's going to be shown in the blood screen. Now, when it's in the urine, it's going to be moving out of the body. And so basically that oxycodone cold medicine would have been processed through his body. So he should not have been loopy or out of it, disorientated, or anything like that. So that was probably one of the glaring things that really first started this case on something isn't right. Well, that and, she ran him over with her van. But yes, the toxicology did in court, and did sound like, he also had a pretty severe inner ear infection, which I can tell you can make you disoriented, dizzy, is quite painful. And just like if you think of chronic pain, I mean, once you're dealing with trying to keep your body moving when you're in a state of pain, it takes a lot of that bandwidth up that you can have for other cognitive things. So it does sound like he was having maybe some issues, but it also seems like she could have been, exaggerating all of this. Or it could have been a function of his inner ear infection. Again, that is going to make you extremely, disorientated, lack of balance, and different things like that. So again, and I wouldn't have thought about the chronic pain thing until I have it. But now that I personally know how my bandwidth can be affected by the pain day that I have, I cannot see how, I can see that this, could be a thing.
Continue on that page.
I asked, are there any other addictions? She said, not that I'm aware of. I asked, did Todd ever have an affair? She said, not that I'm aware of. Did you ever have an affair? She said, no. I said, did either of you ever accuse the other one of having an affair? She said, yes. When and who? I asked. She said, well, Todd has female friends, I have male friends, and we'd get angry, I guess, sometimes, and just accuse the other person or ask the other person, but never, I don't think, ever seriously. I guess just kind of, so I asked, had either of you made that accusation within 6 months of the fire? She said, yeah, Todd had. I asked, who did he accuse you of having an affair with? And she said, well, it was actually kind of funny because he came down to where I worked to surprise me one night to meet me for break, and I just so happened to have fallen at work and wasn't there at work. I was at the hospital. And when he called me on my cell phone, I answered it, and he says, are you at work? I said, no. And right then he says, who the hell are you with? And I told him my boss had to take me to the hospital. So then Todd came to the hospital, and everything was fine. But it was just kind of weird that he decides to show up and surprise me on the day that I end up twisting my ankle and going to the hospital. So
And I'll just have you read the next 2 lines, 6 and 7.
where were you working at the time? She said, Kemley.
And I'll have you drop down to line 18 on page 50, and if you could read to the bottom of the page.
Any other accusations? She said he would just sometimes yell something like that, like, are you seeing somebody else? Because, we had talked about divorce, but you never had? And she said, no. Did he ever accuse you of being in a relationship with a woman? And he asked me if I was.
And I'll have you read on page 51
How
down
does
to
that
line
come up?
16, please.
With who? She said, my friend Kate Fox. I said, had you and she ever had a relationship like that? And she said, no. So I asked, and what was his basis of that accusation? Did he tell you? And she said, yeah, because Kate had attempted suicide and was in the hospital, and I was really distraught over it. We were really close, and we worked together, and I was just really worried about her. And he asked if we were lovers. Was that a serious question, or was he just telling you to stop worrying about her? She said, I think he was getting sick of me worrying about her so much, and it was, just his way of, putting things.
I'll have you read down 15 and 16 and stop on that
I
page.
said, okay, you worked with Kate Fox at Chemlink, and she said, yes.
And then I'm going to have you go to page 52, and if you could read this page for me, please.
I asked if there were any other recent accusations of affairs. She said no. And then I asked her, you haven't accused him in the last 6 months? And she said no. I asked, what about abuse? Any abuse in the relationship? And she said yes. I said, what kind, when? And she said different times through the years, just different things. I asked, let's just talk about that in the last year. She answered, the most recent was around Thanksgiving time. He had shoved me across the room, had thrown my cell phone at me, and he pushed me into the wall. I asked, what was that fight about? And she said, part of it was me making a pineapple upside down cake to work for a potluck and not having made one for home. But I had all the ingredients to make two. I just hadn't made the one for home yet. I was going to make it on the weekend. And then that was about the time that he said, you're treating your coworkers better than your family. And then that night before the fire, he wanted to make love and I didn't. And he came into the bedroom and tried to pry my legs apart and take my pants off, but I didn't let him.
And I'm going to have you continue on that on page 53, please, that page.
I said, so was there any sexual intercourse that night or not? And she said no. And I said, how did you stop him? And she said, I told him it wasn't going to make anything better and that I didn't want to. And if he made me, I would tell the police. I had never said anything like that to him before, so at least he knew I was serious. I asked, have you ever hit him or thrown anything at him? And she said no. I said, has he ever accused you of it? And she asked, of hitting him? Yes. And I said, but it wasn't true. And she said, right.
Yeah, Sarah Adams looks like she is accusing him of spousal rape. Now, am I saying that there aren't marriages where this is an actual and terrifying, horrible thing that happens? Yes. Do I think that it happened in this marriage? No. No, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Because she wouldn't have told him no. If she was really this scared of him, if there really was a history of him laying hands on her, then you know that attitude of I'm just not going to fight over it. It's just not worth it for me to have this fight. You're going to sleep with him. You're going to sleep with him to keep the peace. You're going to want to go to bed. You know that it's going to be like 30 seconds of stupid. But you're going to. And this can go the other way. If this is an aggressive female with a, partner that she is, aggressive toward that's male, this is going to be sort of the same dynamic where, yes, you don't want to. Yes, in a perfect world, you would say no, but you know the consequences of what happens when you say no. You know the consequences of when this person gets angry. And so you will do whatever you know will keep them happy for that time. So, look, I'm not I'm not a, psychologist, medicologist, but I'm calling BS on this. No, I think that's just the font that they use to make it easier for them to read on transcript. I could be wrong, though.
Did you ever call the police? Did he ever call the police on you? She said no. I said, did you ever call the police on him? And she said yes. Before we ever moved to Lawrence, sometime prior to 1996. I couldn't give you the date. I didn't actually.
Well, Ghost, so the thing I can like it to is Sarah Boone. So you know how George, when she would film him, he would just say verbatim what she said, just to agree with her. That's kind of where you just get into that pattern of, yes, Sarah, unintentionally, yes, Sarah is an angel. Sarah is a beautiful woman. And then, you heard her in the background, and she helps dogs that are blind. And he's like, yes, and she has a blind dog. And you're like, blink, Jorge, if you need help. Look, you have to live with this person for 24/7. It is not worth the 3-hour, conversation of browbeating and, you don't love me, you're accusing me, this, that, and the other. Look, it just becomes too much to deal with. And if you know this will make the person happy and is going to keep you from getting whatever negative consequences, you just start doing whatever you know is going to keep that person happy. So whether it's, a conscious choice or whether it's just a pattern that kind of becomes survival, I can tell you, if he was really as bad as she's saying he was, she would probably have not said boo to him if he said, I want to do it tonight. That's just my take on it. I could be so wrong. I only know my personal experience, but I can tell you that when you're in a relationship like that, there are certain things you just stop fighting over because it's not worth it.
Call the police on him. The girl was staying at our house, called the police, but I had talked with them. And at that time, he had hit me and pushed me quite a bit, and I had some marks on me, and 2 police officers came, a male and a female. And when he came out, the female officer was with me, and I was about ready to file a report. And he came out and said, are you sure you want to do this? Because you'll go to jail too. And I asked what he meant. And he said, well, if you accuse me of hitting you, then I'll accuse you of hitting me, and we'll both go to jail. All the grandparents were out of town at the time, and the police officer said that was true, and that if we didn't have someplace for the kids to go, that they'd have to have, I don't remember who they said, but it came down to like protective services would have to come and get the kids. And Todd says, are you sure you want to do this? And I talked to the police officer, and she said, well, yeah, it's his word against your word, and if you both say that you both got hit, then we have to take both of you in and let the judge decide. So I didn't pursue it any further, and they left, and we spent the night there in the house, and he apologized to me.
You continue.
So that was the only time that you called the police on him? And she said, well, like I said, I didn't call the police were called. But as far as abuse between he and I believe those two incidents were around Thanksgiving time and that time.
So I'm going to stop you right there. So in the duration of the marriage, she's saying that she's had two incidents, one prior to 1996 and then one at Thanksgiving time.
And the one the night before the fire.
And the one night before the fire. Thank you
That's
very
what she
much.
wanted me to believe, yes.
And then I'm going to then have you start at line 24 on page 54, if you could continue on there.
I said, thank you very much. Who called the police around Thanksgiving? And she said, Kate Fox. I asked what? And she said, Kate Fox. I said, what was Kate Fox doing there? And she answered she wasn't there. She had called me on the phone to come and pick me up for work because we rode together and most every day. And I was crying and hysterical and upset, and I told her I couldn't talk to her, and so she called the police.
And I'm going to have you jump down to line 21 and read the bottom of that page, please.
I asked, this incident the night before the fire, where he tried to force himself on you, what kind of situation did that create between the two of you? She answered, he wasn't happy. I said, how are you? And she said, well, I actually felt relieved that he stopped. I mean, he kept yelling at me about it and different things, but not too bad. And he told me that if I would just make love with him, that everything could be just fine.
I'll have you continue.
I said, did you at any time from that moment on? She clarified, make love with him. I said, yes. And she said, no. I asked any sort of sexual contact at all the day of the fire, and she said, no. Any more instances like that where he was trying to force it? And she said, no. I asked, did you tell anybody about this incident before the fire? And she said, no. I said, have you told anyone about this since the fire? She said, yes. I asked who? She said, I told my mother, I told Mr. Getting, I told my counselor.
And I'll have you stop there. And if you can go to page 57, start halfway through line 23.
But up until Kate Fox and I began working together, that was the most I had ever hung out with another female, and that was mainly because we worked together and we carpooled every single day.
And I'm going to have you stop there. And if you can go to page 62, please, on line 21.
I was asking about medications, and she said she was taking Lexapro since November of 06, and I was given the prescription for Ambien CR. That was my prescription, but I wasn't taking it.
And I'm going to have you then stop and go to page 63 and go to the fourth line down and just read lines 4 and the portion of 5.
This was her response. She said, the Ambien, I took it a couple of times, but it made me feel too groggy and too sluggish.
So you can stop there.
Okay.
And then I'm going to have you go to page 64, line 16. If you could just read 4 lines for me.
You described him in the morning of the fire having a tray of pill bottles by him. I meant what? And she said, no, I just said a couple of pill bottles, and I think that they were just what was prescribed for his ear.
I'm going to have you go to page 66, line 10, and if you could read that from 10 to the bottom of the page.
66, line 10. We're in the middle of an answer. She says, I was thinking about some things, and I had spoken with an attorney that we know who had handled some of Corey's custody and stuff, and asked him that if Todd ever did decide he wanted a divorce, if he would represent me. I asked, who is that? She said, Mr. Jeff Gaggie, G-A-G-I-E. But I don't know if you would need that, because you said within the last couple of years, and that was back in maybe 2002 or so, so it was a few more years than I was thinking. I asked, you contacted Mr. Gaggie? She said, well, actually, I was using Mr. Is it Gaggie or Gage? Do you know?
Gaggie.
Gaggie, okay. Well, I actually was using Mr. Gaggie for the rescue case of the 23 horses, and I asked, you needed an attorney to rescue horses? And she said, yeah, sometimes you do. I asked, I mean, I'm not opposed to using attorneys, and she said, sometimes you do. And, you know, Todd had got frustrated and upset about so many horses coming in all at once, and the fact that the previous owner of them had changed her mind about turning them over and that. So Mr. Gaggie was representing me on that, and I told him that Todd was really upset and frustrated, and he had spewed off about getting a divorce.
I'll have you stop there.
Sure.
And then I'll just have you skip down to line 14.
When did you have that conversation with Mr. Gaggie? She said, I don't know, probably sometime around 2002, then again in November of 06.
And I'll have you just jump down to line 19 and continue there.
This is her answer. In November, I went to Mr. Gaggie and asked him if he would do a divorce for me because I just decided that I just couldn't keep living this way. I had told Todd after that it was just too much, and he gave me some paperwork at that time. I didn't file, I didn't pay him or anything, but he gave me the paperwork that would be necessary to file. So when you ask me if I filed, no, I had never filed. But yes, I did talk to him pretty extensively about it, and I had told him about some different incidences that happened, and that made me feel really uncomfortable.
I'll have you continue.
I asked her, like, what? And she said, well, Todd had been out hunting one morning, and I was sitting in the dining room at the computer before we moved it into the other room. And he came up the stairs. He was holding his gun and cleaning it. And he was holding his gun and a cleaning kit. And out of the corner of my eye, I could see that the gun was open. It was like a shotgun or a rifle. And he was carrying a cleaning kit. And he came over and he set the cleaning kit on the dining room table behind me and just held up the gun. Well, I could see the reflection in the computer screen that the gun was not pointed directly at my head, but I never turned around and faced him or anything at that point and didn't act like I seen him exactly what he was doing. And he held it there and he said, I'm really sorry I have to do this. And I turned around and just looked at him and I said, you're a jerk.
Yes.
And he said, why? And I said, why would you joke around like that? And he says, you were so scared. And he just started laughing at me. And he had told me Todd had been really studying the Bible.
I would watch the hell out of Mr. Ed and Matlock Mysteries. You know, Mr. Ed would just take, good old Mr. Matlock wherever he needed to go. And then he'd be like, hey, I think he looks a little suspicious. And then Matlock would go lawyer the hell out of it. That's it. We need a Mr. Ed and Matlock. Mr. Ed would make a great attorney. He'd make a better defense attorney than the two that are currently here, so I agree.
A lot in the past, Todd had been really studying the Bible a lot this past year, 2006. I asked, he told me, and she said, pardon me, and I said, did you say someone told you Todd was studying the Bible? And she said, no. I said, Todd had been studying the Bible pretty heavily over the past year, a lot more than he ever had before, and, well, just a lot. And he told me that in the Bible it says that a man who gets a divorce from a woman, if she should remarry after that divorce, then it's still considered, in the Bible, it's considered adultery. So that man who...
Okay, not that I'm a theologian, at all, but my guess is this would be part of the Abrahamic laws, probably in the Old Testament. Now, what's good about being a Christian is that when Jesus came, according to our religion, we no longer have to follow all of them stupid rules in Deuteronomy. So basically, Jesus came in and you can divorce your wife. Merry Christmas. The Bible doesn't say that. Now, there are some sects of Christianity that do kind of focus on the more Abrahamic laws. That would be the laws, in Deuteronomy. When it was the Prop 8 thing in California, and Jack Black dressed up as Jesus, and he was talking about how eating shellfish is a sin. Only if you're Jewish, because Christians do not adhere to Abrahamic law. Mosaic law is what it's called. We don't, submit ourselves to Talmudic law, which is what you're doing. Now, that being said, none of this is anything that I've seen in the Bible, but I will look up if a divorced woman, gets remarried, is she cheating? But again, all of that is not really domain to Christianity, because again, that's considered part of the Talmudic laws that are in the Torah, and not something we have to do. That being said, if you want to get annulled and you're Catholic, it's $8,000. And I'm glad my mom didn't do that, because I still exist. So I'm pretty sure that getting annulled would mean I was like only half a kid. I don't know. She probably does.
Divorces that woman is considered just as much of a sinner because he caused that sin. And he says, so I can't divorce you, but you can divorce me. So I told Mr. Gandy that. Keep going?
Nope, I'm going to have you stop there. I'll have you read on line 19 down.
I asked, so any more episodes like that in between November and when the fire occurred? And she said, just a lot of little things. Like he would talk about divorce. He would talk about death. He would talk about suicide. He would talk about insurance. He would talk about moving to Canada. Just a lot of just different things.
And I'll have you read that on page 70.
When would he talk about suicide? She asked, what do you mean when? Just different times? Like he'd say, I'd be better off dead, I'm so sick of this. I asked what was going on when he'd say, I'm so sick of this. She said, being in debt all the time, not having energy to work on the house. You know, our house wasn't complete, and he would stay home, not go to work, not work on the house, not do anything. He didn't, this last year, I mean, he was an avid hunter before, and we always had a lot of meat, deer meat and that. And this last year, he hardly ever went hunting. He got 2 deers, and I think that's the least that he got in many years. The boys wouldn't go hunting with him this year. I asked why. She said, just too busy with other things, and that frustrated Todd. And he would say things like, the boys don't even enjoy hunting anymore, and I don't enjoy hunting anymore. He didn't play church basketball this year, and just a lot of different things. He just didn't. I asked, did you guys attend church regularly? She said, no.
Now I have you stop there.
All right.
And then if you could go to page 75, at the bottom of the page, on line 24.
I asked, what time did you wake up the morning of the fire? She said, probably around 7 o'clock.
And I'll have you continue that on page 76.
Did you have an alarm set? She said, no. I asked, were all 3 sons and Todd home when you woke up? She said, yes. Who all was awake when you woke up? She said, no one. I asked, what did you do? And just to clarify, this is the part of the examination where I go through moment by moment on the day of the fire. I want to know everything that happened so that we have a very clear timeline and we can start to verify the story. So I asked her, what did you do? She said, just puttered around about the house. I asked, I really need to know all the puttering. She said, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think what I did first thing. I always get up and brush my teeth right away. I got dressed. At some point that morning, I remember straightening my bathroom. Did you do any cooking? Did you do any laundry? She said, not right away that day, no. I asked, are you a coffee gal? She said, no. Well, I went down to the convenience store and got some eggs, and I believe it seems like it was Smoky Links and maybe some milk. I said, okay, wait, when you left to go to the convenience store, was anyone else awake? She said, no. I asked, do you know what time that was? She said, I know it was before 10 o'clock.
It does.
I asked, you went to what store? She said, the Village Marathon. I asked in Lawrence. She said, uh-huh.
I mean, stop, just jump down to line number 9.
What all did you buy there? She said, I bought some eggs, I believe it was Smoky Links. I think I got some milk, and I filled up my blazer. I asked, so you did buy gas for the blazer? And she said, yes. I asked, how much gas? Do you remember? She said, I don't remember. I think the total bill for everything combined all came to, I believe, around $20. I asked, anything else? She said, no. I asked, did you have any gas? Did you put any gas in a gas can that day? She said, no. I said, are you sure? She said, I know I didn't. And I asked, you know you did not? And she said, right.
I'll have you continue on page 78.
How long were you there? She said, not very long, just long enough to do that, just to purchase those things. I asked, what time did you get back home? She said, within minutes. We only lived 5 minutes away at the most. I asked, so you were home in 15 minutes? She said, maybe 15, 20 minutes I was gone a total of. I asked, now what? She said, I began cooking. I asked, is there anybody awake? She said, I can't remember if Todd was awake yet or not. I know that while I was cooking, he was up, but I can't remember if he was up before then or not. I asked, did you start cooking right away? She said, as soon as I got back, yes. I asked, the eggs and sausage? She said, yes. And then I put coffee on for Todd because he is a coffee drinker. Okay. And at some point he was awake, and she said, yes. I asked, while you were cooking? She said, yes. What else happened? I told him when he came out into the kitchen, I told him I had gone down and gotten those things and told him that I used the debit card. The debit card for what bank? I asked. She said, his debit card from his business account. I asked, why did you use the debit card from his business account? She said, because I knew there was money in there. I asked, where does he have his business account? She said, it's now LaSalle Bank in Paw Paw. I asked, do you have any records of that account with you today? She said, I don't, I'm sorry. I said, can you get those for me? She said, I can try. I don't know if the bank will let me have them because my name was not on the account. Keep going?
Yes, please.
So I asked, how did you get his debit card? She said, I took it out of his wallet. I asked, was that common for you? She said, yes. And then I continued my question, or was that unusual? She said, no, it was common for me. I asked, was it common to use the business account to buy groceries? She said, yes. He would write me a check from there for different things. I would either deposit it into the joint account or cash it and use it for whatever we were supposed to use it for. I told him about other purchases I made with it over the course of the weekend, and he got pretty upset because I hadn't written them into the register yet, and the fact that I had used it a few times. So I asked, so what did you buy over the weekend with it? She said, I bought a disposable camera. I asked why. She said, my grandmother had her 90th birthday party on Saturday, and I walked off and forgot to take my digital camera. And so I grabbed a disposable so I could get some pictures of family, and I filled prescriptions at Walgreens and at Walmart on Saturday.
And I'm gonna have you stop there, and I'm gonna have you go to page 81. Yes.
About 5 minutes or
Oh,
so,
that's fine.
unless you're getting near the end, but I don't think you are.
No, so I mean, we can end at any time, Your Honor.
Want to do it now?
That would be fine. We can do it now if you want, if the court would like to.
Okay. So I don't think anyone's objecting, right? Okay.
Okay, so we are going to go to day 6 for this particular court TV, because this is where we were earlier today when I was confused as hell as to where we were. So we are back with Mr. Willison. Looks like this
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the
witness
testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
is going to be on
Ms.
until
Ivey?
Thank you, Your
after
Honor.
morning break.
Mr. Willison, we kind of left off yesterday. I just want to recap a couple of the issues that we touched on, the topics. First of all, we talked about her debt. Can you just recap quickly, and then we'll talk further on anything that might be in the further transcript?
She owed about $100,000 to family and friends. And then she mentioned to me that after the fire, she noticed that apparently there was a foreclosure on the property earlier, and they got it out of foreclosure, but then Todd hadn't made, the way she put it was that Todd hadn't made any payments since then. So they were several months behind on their mortgage payment as well.
And did she, from yesterday's testimony, did she talk to you about why she was frustrated with Todd?
Oh, very much so. I mean, my impression was that she took every opportunity she could to make Todd look like a bad guy. She was frustrated about him.
I mean, he's making impressions, and it's either a statement that's in the transcript and not what he feels like that she was trying to do. I think that is totally out of line.
I will sustain that objection.
She mentioned several addictions to Vicodin, marijuana, sleeping pills, mentioned him being loopy the day of the fire. She talked about domestic violence, where it was always his fault, never hers.
Michigan. And I think he is pointing out what I kind of noticed. So, of course, I'm going to agree with this man. But again, Linda wastes no time to the point where you kind of question why these people are together and still married, with how she bad talks Todd. And Debbie, I hope you're feeling better and, get some rest. And, resting is important. It's actually just as important as, getting up and doing your PT. Although it's still something that I am trying to say as many times until I remember that it's actually a thing. And hopefully tonight, what I'm hoping to do is I should be able to speed watch all of Lori Vallow, and I'll be doing short update videos on that. And then when I'm helping Baker cover Karen Reed, I'll probably be doing quick speed runs through bits of that. And then what caused her to get another trial. So basically her first trial, her lawyers were actually ineffective. They barely cross-examined anyone. They never objected through the entire trial, and they didn't cross-examine any of the witnesses. Basically, the kind of tribunal decided that she needed a new trial based on those things. And I mean, not for nothing, I think she's going to be found guilty again. Oh, Dally got up at 3 a.m. to try for a seat. I hope he got it. I don't know that I'll cover Brian Kohberger, except maybe to do updates on it. Just because there has been a whole year preceding this, or several years. Why does it feel... I'm going to be really honest with you guys. Instead of equivocating about how much I don't know or know about the case, that one is an extremely hard case for me. My oldest daughter is getting ready to go to college. And while I know that, it is not something that's likely, that's kind of like my biggest fear right now. So I'm not sure that I'm going to be covering the Kohberger case, just because it is kind of like one of those things that I really don't want to think about right now. And the scariest thing about giving your letting your child go out into the world is they're going into the world. And I may or may not be one of those mom who ugly cries at her graduation. Okay, strike that. I'm going to be one of those mom who ugly cries at her graduation. She is wanting to go to USI, possibly, or she's looking at a couple different colleges. So I'm really proud of her, and she seems to have a great head on her shoulders. But that case is altogether too much of a worst nightmare ever scenario. So I might check it, but I might.
He talked about, particularly the incident at Thanksgiving before the fire, where she was so distraught that her friend Kate Fox had to call police for her. And then the night before the fire, where he attempted to rape her, she talked about him not working hard enough, not working often enough. She told a story about one time Todd declared that he was leaving, and anybody who's going to come with me, meaning the boys, should get in the car right now. And she made it into this story that he repeated several times, and no one came with him. So just little things like that, where she was always pointing out bad things.
And that kind of recapped yesterday.
Yes.
So how much was this insurance claim that she was submitting?
I believe she was, it ended up being over $400,000. I can look up the exact number if you'd like.
I think that's a general. I think we're good with that.
Yes.
And then
Close to 5, if I recall.
close to 5?
Yes.
And then did she tell you that she'd received any other insurance money when you interviewed her?
She had received, I think it was $90,000 from perhaps a life insurance policy. We talked about I think it was in the October statement with her.
So I'm going to do things a little bit different today. The jury has the transcripts. They can read everything, the complete transcripts as part of an exhibit. So I'm going to ask you today, we're going to group it into groups. And if you can just summarize, because we do have 2 entire transcripts, I'm going to have you summarize the topics for us.
Sure.
And first of all, I want to ask you, we have a lot of pages of 2 transcripts there.
Yeah.
Why do you ask so many questions about a particular topic?
Well, when we go into these, the purpose of these is to find out information and also to allow the insured to tell their side of the story. So, I will ask a number of questions and then start to probe into more details on specific topics. What I would always train my attorneys on is that, the truth has a lot of detail to it, and when you make up a story, that's usually pretty shallow. So when someone says something like, I don't know, just as an example, we went to McDonald's, that's a pretty easy thing to come up with. But when I start asking you, well, who drove? What did you order? Those kinds of details. If it really happened, you either remember what happened or you don't remember what happened, but you don't get it wrong. If you're making the story up and now I'm asking you things that you didn't think of, now you start to make it up on the fly and other stories may not match. So when I run into things in an examination where that's an interesting data point or that's different than what other things in the file say, I start to probe deeper, because then the insured will either explain why it looks odd to me, by giving me the details that make sense, or will take the rope to hang themselves because they're going to continue lying. And so when I find something interesting, I've got to get into the details for it to make sense for me to be able to make an informed decision about whether it was true or false.
So as we're going through these topics, if you could describe any inconsistencies that you saw over the course of these transcripts, or maybe things you had to drill in, I'd appreciate it.
All right,
Okay.
I'll do my best.
So let's start out with just the overall topic of the relationship. What did she tell you about affairs?
That she was never unfaithful to him.
Ooh, I guess Linda doesn't want it to be told that she had all the affairs. Now, I think cheating is cheating. If she had an affair with a woman, I think that that's just as bad as having an affair with a man. This man isn't a doctor. He's actually a lawyer that contracts out with insurance agencies. So he basically does these kind of in-depth depositions, and then the insurance agency will kind of be able to say, okay, well, by the looks of this deposition, we're gonna, look at these things clearly to see if they're lying. And she wanted $400K, plus she'd already gotten $93,000 from life insurance.
Can you just summarize?
sorry.
I want you to give me your opinion about her answers. I'm just going to ask you to kind of summarize what she said over the course of these transcripts. So let's start out with affairs. Can you just summarize what she told you about the affairs over the course of the February and the October examination under oath?
She told me that she was never unfaithful to him, that he had accused her of affairs, but that she wasn't having any. There was some concerns about her work, that he had gone to work one time checking up on her. He accused her of having an affair with Kate Fox, and she denied all of those, but apparently she admitted that he had accused her.
And did she say if the horses were any sort of their marriage frustration?
She said that was a wedge issue. She had, I think it was 20-some horses at the time of the fire. At one time she had 49 horses, but they had no barn. So these horses were just out apparently in the field.
Wait, they had no barn? Okay, I get that some people aren't financially minded. I get that some people don't have like common sense, that the good Lord gave a goose. But how in the hell do you have 49 damn horses and no daggone barn? If you want to be a rescue for these horses, don't they need shelter? Don't they need places to, I don't know, do inside horsey things? Good Lord.
20 large animals, I'm sure.
And I'm going to not have you give any opinions. So I just want you to summarize for me, okay?
The wedge issue was both acquiring them and maintaining them was apparently the issue.
And I think we've already talked about the debt, so I'm going to skip over that. So can you summarize then over the course of those two transcripts what she had told you about divorce?
I think we read yesterday some things about Attorney Gaggy, that he had given her paperwork in November. She mentioned that I believe it was a relative of hers wanted her to just slip out, and she said she couldn't leave him without talking to him first. She had talked to Corey apparently a week before the fire about her plan to divorce and leave. She told the story about Todd being sick of everything and wanting to leave that I mentioned earlier. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring at the time of the fire, although she did explain that she works with caulk at work, and so she wouldn't wear it to work, and sometimes she'd forget to put it back on. And when we got into some of the details of the events around the fire, I wanted to clarify whether she intended to leave, and she told me that she knew all along that she was going to leave on that day the fire occurred. But then at the same time, she told me that she never really wanted to get a divorce from him. She was hoping that leaving might prompt him into counseling or something like that. But she had given him the paperwork from Mr. Gaggy apparently the night before the fire as part of that fight they had the evening before the fire.
And we already talked about that she had said.
And there is no way, again, if she is as scared of him, if he has laid hands on her, he is as controlling, as domineering, as, dominating over her, she would never tell him the night before that she had gotten paper and all those papers. She would have left and not told him. Again, there are things that you need that don't make sense if you have lived in a relationship like this before. There are things that ring untrue, just based on logic. If you're afraid of this man, if you know he will do anything up to and, including pointing a force multiplier at you and saying you need to be the one to leave, otherwise I'm helping you sin, these two things don't make sense, and they don't tell a cohesive narrative. And if her defense attorneys had been thinking about this, she would have realized that this doesn't make any sense. And Legal Vices is right. Truth has a ring to it. Although if it's Linda and it's her ring finger, she ain't gonna stay honest to no one.
Comments about the Ambien and the marijuana, so I'll skip over those topics.
Sure.
And you talked a little bit about the domestic violence that we were reading yesterday. Were there more instances or questions than pertaining to domestic violence in the marriage?
Well, yeah, I mean, she told a very dramatic story at one point about the night before the fire, him trying to force himself upon her sexually, forcing her legs apart, trying to take off her pants. She threatened to call the police, and that is the only reason why he stopped. But then I'd hear a story about, she gets up the next morning and makes breakfast for him. So I had to probe into that area more. Then suddenly it became less rapey and more he just desired to have sex. And then it went back to
I'm not laughing. I just didn't expect this man to use less grapey and more he just wanted to spend time with his wife. That being said, it might have calmed her ass down.
No, he was forceful with me. So there was a shifting take on things as I would probe into details. When one thing wouldn't match up with another, I'd ask about it, and then we'd get a slight change.
And did she talk to you about how many times there was any incidents of any physicalness between her and Todd in terms of violence?
She said it was off and on throughout the years, and she was kind of vague about it. That's why I asked her specifically, well, what about police incidences? And she told me about one in 1996, and she told me about Thanksgiving, where the times that police were called, but she was careful to say that she didn't call the police, apparently on either of those occasions. But there was no record of domestic violence, no charges against either of them that I was able to find.
And she told you that?
And she did say that as well, yes.
And any other altercations that she talked about, or the number of incidents that she would have had in her 13-year marriage?
I mean, I think at one point I asked her if it was 20 or 25, and she said that seemed like a high number to her, so it was less than that. But as I dug into details, I guess I didn't follow up on a specific number,
Okay.
and she didn't. I don't think she had one either.
Okay. And we talked about her frustration with Todd's job. Anything additional on that?
I think we read yesterday about that he didn't work smart, and he didn't work hard enough, he didn't work often enough, he didn't make enough money, was basically the gist of it. Mm-hmm.
So now I want to get into the details of the night before.
Sure.
So did she tell you where the boys were the night before?
Well, yeah, what I was interested in, and typically this is my normal MO in these examinations under oath, is, whenever you got home before the fire, everything that you did, everything that happened until the fire.
Not being responsive to the question that was asked.
If you could rephrase the question to make
I'm
sure
sorry.
so that you can be responsive to it.
Sure.
What's your approach when you're talking about the night before?
I want to know every detail of everything that happened. I want to know everybody who was there. I want to know, because anything could end up causing a fire. So, if you brushed your teeth, do you have an electric toothbrush? If you made breakfast, did you use the stove, right? All of those details, who was home, who left, when did they leave? I get into all those details starting from the night before, or whenever you got home before the fire, to whenever you left. And
Now, I will say that the insurance team, whoever hired this man, did a wonderful job. And what I mean by that, okay, especially as an expert witness and a witness in this case, the defense's main theory has been that the insurance wanted to not pay this, that they were mean to a poor widowed woman with her, homeless children, made them go out to the scene of the fire to do their first initial interviews, all of that kind of thing. Now, the fact that this man is jovial, seems kind, even when he's kind of digging into answers, he's still kind of like friendly neighbor Ned. He is so kind and jovial and personable that I think this is really going to take the wind out of the sails of the defense, who's going to be like, you were being mean to her. You accusated her of cheating. I do think that this is really, really, a good kind of move, especially for the insurance. And it might have been a mutually toxic relationship. Linda might have had valid concerns as far as, was Todd's business actually fiscally, viable, that kind of thing. But I really like him, and he seems so nice, and he's going to have to deal with this dumbass attorney, and I'm going to feel like I'm going to get mad on his behalf. So if I start cursing, that's the reason. I'm mad on his behalf.
And so with this case, it was the night before. She said she got home around 10 or 10:30. I believe she was at her grandmother's maybe 90th birthday party. And when she got home, she said that Todd and the boys were home. The boys were in the basement, but when she first got home, she didn't go down there. She talked to Todd at the beginning.
And what did she say that conversation with Todd was?
It turned into a fight about the debit card, use of the debit card, spending money, not recording things in the ledger.
Your Honor, I want to again object to the characterization that's being made in reference to this witness. He's stating that there was a fight, and there's absolutely nothing in the transcript that states that there was a fight.
Ms. Idovine, can you get to point where?
I have the exact page numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. So in one of the transcripts, I'm going to have you pull up page 85.
Sure.
Which transcript?
I think they're all labeled 1 to 200 and something, so page 85.
It's in 35. It's in 35.
So did you,
It's very rich for this defense attorney. Like, she didn't lay proper foundation. Dude, you asked a question that was covered in direct. Like, you have not been on this planet as far as questions, okay?
ask her to describe that conversation on Saturday night on page 85 and 86?
She said that the
Can you stop
conversation...
and tell me what line it is so I can have then Jay bring it up for us?
Right, I'm just looking to try and find the right spot. Back on page 84 at the bottom, she said, line 24 and 25, he screamed a couple of times, but it was argumentative, but quieter. It wasn't calm. Again, she repeated on page 85, no, it wasn't calm, but it wasn't terrible. That conversation lasted about a half an hour. I asked her, so that took us to about 11 o'clock, and she agreed.
So you interpreted that as that they had fought?
Yes.
It's approach.
No, you may not approach. You're annoying me.
Your Honor.
It may.
So you described
And I really want to get back on this point. So I want you to think that Linda, one of her main bugbears was he's not making enough money, but she goes and she takes his debit card that's linked to his business account, not talking to the business owner himself, the one that she accuses of making all these poor business decisions, but she goes and commingles accounts, goes and commingles home expenses with business expenses. What do you guess that their taxes haven't been done right in years? Or it is a pain in the ass to do their taxes and claim anything on his business. There were also no documented, instances of DV. Not one instance. Now, again, I'm not saying they didn't happen. I'm saying Linda is not my idea of an honest witness. I'm sorry. I don't like cheaters. I, in fact, think it's the worst, most scummy thing you can do to someone you claim to have loved once or currently love. I don't get it. I have, dealt with the heartbreak from it and, still deal with those feelings sometimes, even though they aren't current in my life. So that being said, I can say that I have a bias toward her being guilty just because she couldn't stay faithful to her marriage, but I'm trying to overcome that and trying to let the facts speak for themselves. But again, if this attorney notices that she says not one kind thing about Todd, now, again, think about yourself and your partner or your significant other. Is every day a bed of roses? Do you sometimes look at them and stare them dead in the eyes, look at them deeply into their soul and say, I don't like you right now, but I'm staying married to you because I'm not dating ever again? Yeah, you're going to have those times. But if they had asked me about Mr. Moe, I wouldn't bring up every negative thing about him. I'd be like, I've lost my husband. I don't know what you want to tell me about the fact that, it really irritated me when he snored. Now I wish I could hear him snore for forever. It's just, there's such a big gulf between how she portrays a man that she voluntarily got married to and what she says she's living with. And I understand that every marriage has this, but if you're in such a point that you can't say not one nice thing about your spouse, then call it quits. It's obviously not working. If you're not willing to put in the hard work to learn and grow with your partner, then call it quits. I'm just about done with people. Don't cheat. Don't set them on fire. Just walk, damn it.
I think you just read in that he screamed a couple times, but it was rather argumentative but quieter, correct?
Correct. She had showed him the divorce paperwork. He told her that she should, quote, pack her shit and leave. At some point, I originally thought it was in the conversation the night before, and then later I think she said that it was Sunday morning, but he said he said she could have the blazer. She told him Saturday night that the boys would stay with him and that she'd be going to Kim's house.
And I want to talk a little bit about when she was talking about when she went to bed then after this argument.
Right. Initially, that's when she told me that that's when this rape accusation happened, about forcing himself upon her. And then she told him that if he continued, she'd call the police. And he kept yelling at her that if she'd just have sex with him, everything would be fine. Eventually, then she told me that she went downstairs to the basement where the boys were watching TV and told me that she laid on the couch with Trenton and fell asleep and spent the night down in the basement. I said, well, wait a minute, I thought that you were in the bedroom and Todd was forcing himself on her. And then she said that, after I confronted her with that, she said that, well, what happened was she went downstairs, she fell asleep cuddling with the boys, and then she went back upstairs to brush her teeth, and then that's when that happened, and then she went back downstairs to go to sleep.
And so then she said she slept in the basement?
Correct. And then she told a story about Todd fussing with the furnace in the middle of the night, which I guess was also in the basement.
And she said she heard that when she was sleeping in the basement?
Yes.
And did she say what he was doing in the furnace?
Apparently on Sunday, he told her that he had to bleed the line because it was blowing cold air, is what she told me.
And did she tell you what she did the day before the fire, on January 6th, before the boys left?
On the day of the fire?
Yes.
Yeah, so she apparently was the first one up. She wanted to go, she wanted to make breakfast for everyone. So she went to the convenience store at the Marathon gas station, bought, I believe it was sausage and eggs, and she said, topped off the fuel tank in her Blazer. I asked her a couple of times, a couple of different ways, if at any point she put gasoline into a gas can. She told me she absolutely did not. She was absolutely sure that she did not put gas in a gas can. She only topped off the tank of the thing, of the Blazer. But then I was struck by the fact that she said that her total purchase
I'm
was...
gonna have you take your...
Yes.
And sir,
Well,
if
he
you
was
could
struck by-
answer the questions without giving your own opinion.
All right, yes, I'd be happy to do that, yes. She also told me that buying all of those things, including topping off the tank on the Blazer, came to about $20.
Okay, so here's what I need. Instead of a breastfeeding pillow, it's just going to be double D sleep. So basically, you've seen them. It's going to be a pillow with bazungas on them. And you can just go to sleep and, the loving, thing of bazungas. Ghost Fox, absolutely. Mo reminding me of the sound of the oxygen machine my dad was stuck in all those 5 years I lived with him. Yeah, it's going to be those little things, the things that annoyed you. Like, I'll make it a bit personal for me. So you guys know that I lost my mother-in-law recently, and God bless her heart, but she would always call me, and Mr. Mo's family has no concept of TMI. Like, I am a sweet summer child. Like, I did not know this. And so every phone call, I was learning things about people I never needed to know about their, like, bits and pieces and parts that don't work or maybe on, like, the fritz. Like, I never wanted to know nothing about anything TMI. But now I would pay anything to have one of those conversations where I am, red-faced and, kind of like, I don't even know what to say to that. So it really is all of those little things that you kind of were just quirks about something, all the things that maybe irritated you about that person, you would pay money to be irritated again, to get just 2 minutes to tell this person, what an impact they made on your life. because you don't always say those words in the moment. You don't always say, hey, the day you did such and such, knitted you into my heart and my soul, because it's hard to say them words. And if you're me, you'd much rather just say a dick joke because feelings suck. But those are the kind of things that you really don't. Yes, discombobulated. I love that word. Discombobulated. So I will say I wish I could get another one of my mother-in-law's TMI conversations, and I would not even, rush to hang up or try to get off the phone when it got a little bit too TMI. I would have if I had a chance to call her again, I wouldn't hang up the phone ever. So those are the kind of things. And it's really telling when someone can't say one nice thing, months after the funeral.
So it must not have been, so that's what she told me.
Okay. And then when she got back, you had, I think, alluded to a conversation between her and Todd about using the debit card. Was that also about the debit card use that morning?
Yes. In fact, she said to her, you knew I didn't have any money to get this stuff. I was going to have to use the debit card, although after the fire, I believe.
I'm going to have to stop you there. In terms of just her statements, if you could just talk about her statements.
She said that she didn't have any money to use it other than the debit card. She said that she spent a total of $50-$60 that weekend. And that particular fight, when she got home from the gas station, lasted about 10 minutes. Okay. She again described it as him screaming at her while he was sitting at the bar. And apparently then he told her again to just pack her stuff and leave.
Okay. And then did she say what she did after this discussion?
She then decided to go down and wake up the boys and send them out of the house. She gave them money to go to the movies or go shopping, she said, because...
Now, I will say, I don't agree with Linda Stermer on damn near anything. But if this wasn't, a way to get the boys out of the house, there will be, look, it is always best if you are going to try to have a grown-up conversation to not have the children around, because there will be times where Mr. Moe and I will be talking about something like retirement or bills or having a financial discussion, and, youngest most feral will be like, you guys spend, so much dollars on food. And it's like, well, first of all, I don't want you bandying around what we spend on food, but these are not conversations that you can understand. So it's really important sometimes that you have these kind of more tense conversations. Like, I've tried to get into the habit of if I have a disagreement with how Mr. Moe is maybe dealing with one of the boys or things like that, I try to ask him to come into a different room, in the last few years, I've tried to ask him to go to a different room so the boys don't see us, as a not connected, solid parental unit, when we're trying to make sure that they have boundaries that we both agree with. So I will say that's the only thing I agree with Linda. If they were going to be talking about separation or divorce, now granted, this was probably just to get her kids out of the house, and they sent the boys out, then I think that's great. And I'm sorry, it's true what they say, that your life grows around your grief, but some of the days you miss them like a physical ache. And JKD Buck is right. There is a way to have a proper constructive argument instead of bringing up all of the, transgressions and, frustrations and irritations of the day, and really focus on what is the big conflict. And if I can be real honest with our marriage, and I'm sure every marriage, a lot of it comes down to lack of communication and hurt feelings. Someone not feeling heard and someone not feeling listened to. Now, I'm not a marriageologist, though. So, that being said, it does come down to being able to have an effective communication with your partner and not bring up that they are acting like their mother.
She thought that she and Todd would be arguing, and she didn't want the boys to hear it. and she was going to pack. She explained to the boys that that was the day that she'd be leaving, and they did not seem terribly upset by that, she told me. She also told the boys that they'd be staying with their dad to finish the school year.
Well, Ghost, it was more that as I was thinking about it one day, you know, if I disagree with the way Mr. Moe is doing something, if I, you know, snip at him and then, you know, as he's trying to effectively parent the boys, that makes it look like dad's not really in charge of parenting at all. Mom's in charge of parenting, and, you know, I can just leapfrog over dad and go to mom because she's really in charge. So instead of making it look like we were both on the same page, Mr. Moe brought up that it really made him feel like I undermined him, you know, as far as him being a dad to the boys. So now I've made it a point to, you know, say, hey, can I talk to you in the other room? And then we talk, you know, like, hey, I think you're being, you know, unfair on this point, or I think you need to be more fair on who you notice is causing issues. But that's part of the communication thing. See, I thought I was helping in the moment by trying to be, you know, kind of a referee, along with Mr. Moe. And instead, what I was doing was hurting his feelings because it felt like I didn't trust him to be a dad. So that's the kind of thing that, you know, you really have to take into account if you want to grow in your marriage. You kind of have to, you know, pull in your pride a little bit and say you're sorry and you didn't mean to hurt someone's feelings. You were intending to help, but that help wasn't helpful. So ask a way that, you know, it would be helpful. Yeah, and you argue differently. You do. I think you just get maybe more mature. I'm hoping that I'm maturing, but you get a little bit more mature. You love this person and they're your best friend, and you wish you could just, you know, try to figure out why you can't live together sometimes.
And then did she tell you how the boys left?
Yeah, she said that she didn't want to ask Todd permission for them to leave, so they should go out the basement door is what she told me. I guess it was a walkout house, and they should go out the basement door and leave without saying anything to their father. Later on, she said that she went out the basement door with them because she had to, I believe, do something with the water trough for the horses. And so she went out with them, told them to wait while she got her purse out of the car and put it in the van, and sent them away in the Blazer because they didn't like the boys driving the van, which meant that she would have to, she said, use the van to leave Todd. And she told the boys, and she told me a couple of times that she told the boys to make sure you call before you come home, because I want to know where you are and where I am, and I may have to come trade cars with you or whatever. But the plan was that the boys would have the car and she would have the van and Todd would be home with no vehicle.
And did she tell you then approximately what time the boys left?
They left between 11 and 11:30, I believe.
And then did she tell you what she did after the boys left?
Yeah, that's when she apparently went back upstairs and gave Todd breakfast. She said she made plenty of food for the boys to eat, but because Todd was yelling at her, she just gave them money for them to eat somewhere else. So she ate in the kitchen, Todd ate in the recliner. She mentioned doing laundry. She mentioned putting Christmas ornaments away because...
So I'm going to stop you there. So she makes breakfast and then she says she starts doing these tasks?
Correct.
Okay, and then go on. What task was she doing after breakfast?
She did laundry.
Yeah, on balance, a lot of things are leaning more toward guilt than innocence for me. And I think it's the lack of consistency. I think had Linda, again, been consistent and not been caught in all of these lies, fabrications, and other things, then I think you could have a clear case for at least accidental or, unconfirmed or accidental arson or fire or what have you. I don't think that you're ever going to get past the fact that she ran him over. So I don't know at any way if you would be able to get past that. You might be able to have been to plead it down to reckless endangerment, homicide, or manslaughter. But given the fact patterns that are emerging in this case, this is going much more to guilty. And Darlene, yes, I will say that he was probably blonde as a child. This is why I don't keep my blonde hair, because as odd as you would think, the red hair actually makes me look less red than if I had blonde hair. It's just the weirdest thing. But his face is blotchy. I do like his tie. Not gonna lie, but I love teal, so.
She put Christmas decorations away. She said that she did the dishes and like with the dishwasher loaded, unloaded the dishwasher. She said she began to pack a suitcase down in the basement, and then she went upstairs to get some things out of her bedroom. When she was up in her bedroom, she saw a pamphlet for an acne medicine that one of her sons was on, and so she lay down on the bed and started reading the acne pamphlet, and then apparently she fell asleep.
Did she say what happened or how she woke up?
She said that when she got up and came out of the room, Todd asked her for juice. Apparently just said, "Do we have juice?"
No, Darlene, he is the lawyer for State Farm Insurance. So basically, he's kind of a private lawyer. He has his own practice, and he contracts out with attorneys so that, or not attorneys, with insurance agencies when they have maybe a disputed claim or there's thoughts by the insurance that maybe there's some fraud going here. So he is here. He does basically these examination under oath. So EUOs, which are kind of like depositions, and he's basically the person that deposed Linda Stermer both a month after her house burnt down and then in October of that same year to try to see how her stories were changing. My guess is that, the insurance already had some questions based on other things that were coming to light, especially with the gasoline being on Todd's clothing and Linda buying gas. All these things, were coming together they really needed to get a good deposition. So basically what he is going through is all of the inconsistencies that he noticed versus, what Linda had told him originally.
And then she went and got it for him, and then she went back downstairs, and then immediately described when she went downstairs that he was screaming at her, walking around upstairs, flushing the toilet, ranting and raving.
And that's why she's downstairs and he's upstairs?
That's what she told me.
Okay. And then did she say what he was screaming?
Things like no one will ever have you, calling her unpleasant names, just basically ranting and raving about their relationship.
And that's when she was downstairs doing laundry?
Correct.
And did she say when he was doing this, telling her these things, what she did down in the laundry room?
At one point, she said she slammed the laundry
Yes,
door
those
in
are the
anger,
transcripts.
but I don't recall any sort of other retaliation that she did. She said that in her experience, she found that it was best to just let Todd vent his feelings.
And then, so she's downstairs doing the laundry. Did she tell you then what happened?
She said at some point the ranting, screaming turned into screaming when she was folding laundry. And once she heard him scream in a different way, she ran upstairs to see what had happened. When she got upstairs, she saw fire from the half wall between the dining room and the living room to where Todd was standing. I don't know if you have that Exhibit 3 from the EUO.
Did you actually have her mark then?
That's
what
when
she
we
saw?
started having her draw things out for us, yes.
Somebody had me put the, that you're referring to?
Yes, and that is her signature on the bottom right corner. So she, what we did, I believe I traced the outline of the house because she said that the walls were different than the plans, so we just traced the outline of the house and then she drew the interior stuff. She told me that she came to the top of the stairs, which you can see I had her indicate top at the top of the stairs, and that the fire was from the half wall, you can see half wall next to the dining room, to where Todd was standing, which is the
Wait, did this woman for real? And look, I am not a spelling person, but I'm gonna need y'all to just peep out how she spelled Frigidator. Because I mean, I'm terrible with spelling, and I can tell you that's not how frigilator is spelled. There's at least 2 L's in there. Frigilator has 2 L's. I call shenanigans. All right, let's see how we figure out this particular map of crazy. And welcome from Georgie's Life Unfiltered. Thank you guys for joining. So this is going to be Linda Stermer, sort of her rendition of what this house looked like.
Small circle over toward the master bedroom.
I'm going to stop you there real quick.
Sure.
Jennifer, I think she's going to have to. And here's why I think that. I think that she's going to have to due to the accidental running him over. Now, let's say the defense does spectacularly. I mean, let's stretch our imaginations real good and pretend that we're in a universe where the defense could be awesome and they could take, hit every point. Even if you got the arson taken out of this, completely out of this, you still come to the fact that she pretty much did, vehicular assault, if not homicide, since the medical examiner could not say that the injuries given from the van would have led to his death. He basically diagnosed Todd as dying of thermal injuries. But to get Linda off completely free and clear, she is going to have to speak and explain how she didn't see her husband, the man that looked like he was cosplaying as the Human Effing Torch, on a pretty, overcast but easy to see day in the yard and ran him over. Like, there are going to need to be issues.
So when you say the small circle by the bedroom, let's see if I can get it right there.
Yep.
The little circle, is that the one that she marked where Todd
She
was?
said that's where Todd was standing, and then the X over by the half wall, that's where Todd's chair was.
Okay.
She said there was fire on both sides of Todd, that she saw his upper body was actually in flames, and the fire went from him all the way to the chair, and that the chair and the half wall were on fire. But she said there was no fire towards the bedrooms.
Which would be then this side over here.
Correct. And she said that the fire that she saw going from the half wall to that circle did not go to where the fireplace was.
Okay. And did she
Oh,
say,
okay.
once she
I was
marked this up
wondering,
and
I
she's
was
describing
like,
what she sees, did she tell you what she
Thanks
did?
for the clarification.
She ran.
I was a bit confused.
She said she ran. She felt like she had to get out of there. And then as she was running out of there, she thought, I should call for help. So she ran toward the kitchen from the top of the stairs. She ran towards the kitchen and out the front door of the house where apparently the van was, and the van had the keys in the ignition. And she decided that she would drive to the neighbors to call for help because her phones were inside the house.
So can you explain, did she talk to you then about what she did when she came out of the house?
Yeah, and this is where things got a bit confusing.
He already did. All he needs to do is just read her answer from the transcript.
I can just say, I'm just trying to summarize it.
Sure, I'll phrase it a different way.
Okay.
Can you read from the transcript? Is that
Well,
what you're
I can refer to the page, Your Honor, with his
Okay.
answer, and we can pull the page up.
Okay.
I think that would be easier, because I think when Attorney Willison was saying, there's multiple sections in the transcript that address this issue. So it's a summary, and then there's going to be different places we can go in different transcripts.
She'll
Your Honor,
provide.
that's why I asked, he needs to just read. She need to ask him the question from the transcript and the answer that was given. That would be simple.
I'll allow her to proceed in whatever manner she chooses, just like you will be allowed to proceed in your cross as you see fit.
So I want to start out then with maybe the first conversation you had with her. If you can summarize what she said when she went out of the house.
She said, as she came out of the house, she heard a thud behind her and looked back, and the door was shut. She did not see Todd come out of the house. She got into the van, was going to turn around, so she backed up straight, she said. And I think this is where we started to have her draw what was marked as Exhibit 4 to the examination under oath.
Okay, so I'm going to have you then go to
I think his last name is Kelly. I don't remember what his first name is, but I think the last name is Kelly. I just want to call him Cletus for some reason.
Is this the drawing that you're referring
Yep.
to as your Exhibit 4?
Yes, if we
Okay.
could maybe
So we'll
zoom
keep
in more.
this up. And so she said she backed up straight, and then what happened?
So she backed straight up. She didn't back up very far, and that's when she saw Todd in the yard.
And then
She
did she-
marked the position where she saw Todd in the yard with an X.
And so there's an X marked on this floor plan. Oh,
So right next to the house, if you
Right
zoom
there?
in, right next to the house, she wrote van in the driveway there.
okay, right where I've got it zeroed in?
And she said she backed straight up the driveway and then saw him standing where the X was.
Okay. All right, and if you could continue. So she saw
She
him.
said he was on fire. She was in the van facing the front door of the house. And then she drew a van with the number 2 in it.
Okay, so we'll pull that up. Oh. Number 2?
Yep.
Okay, what is the number 2?
And that's where the van was when she saw him. So she pulled up and stopped the van in the position where she marks number 3.
And there's 2 number 3s there, and one has a line through it. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, she decided that she had driven off the path, apparently wanted to change the location, so she changed
So
it.
she corrected it. So
Yeah.
she crossed off one and she corrected it then with the new place.
She said she drove up there really fast, and she jumped out and screamed at him to just lay down. Apparently Todd was screaming and trying to pull his clothes off. He was jumping and moving and wouldn't lie down no matter what she said. Then Linda told me that she tried to get close to him, but she didn't want to get too close because she didn't want to get burned. She was afraid to touch him. And then she jumped back in the van.
Now what did she do then when she jumped back in?
When she jumped back in the van, she couldn't get it to go backwards, so she slammed it in gear and went forward to position 4.
Okay, I'm gonna mark position 4, which is here.
Yes.
And what is that dotted line then by number 4?
She said there was a fence line there, and she almost ran.
Okay, no, this makes no sense. So why do you go past your burning husband all the way to the backyard when he was up near the front of the house? None of this is making sense to me. And again, what Mr. Moe has to do, I've never been completely on fire. I know you're shocked. But I can tell you that CRPS pain can feel like you're being burnt alive. It's akin to feeling like you're getting freezer burnt or burning, on fire. And I can tell you that Mr. Moe has to speak incredibly clearly to me if I'm on a really bad pain day, because he will be telling me something and I will look at him and I'm like, what did you just talk? And honest to goodness, if you didn't know me, you would think I would be quite enhanced. I was quite, out of it, drunk or loopy. And no, your brain just doesn't process when you're in that much pain. You only think of, get it off me, get it off me, get it off me. That being said, if she had gone over in a loud, clear voice and said, Todd, lay down, roll, it might have been able to get through that. Now, what drive into the backyard is going to do for him, I don't know.
And through the fence. And then she still couldn't back up, so she decided to go down and behind the house, so further downhill, to try and get traction. And 6 is where she ended up stopping, is what she
So you
said.
said number 6. So
And that is
back
now
here.
behind the house, correct.
Okay.
Obviously, I asked her more questions about why she's heading further away, and she told me that even though it was further downhill, that they would sometimes go down there because it was sandier down behind the house, and you could get better traction, so she figured she'd go down there and drive up. But
What do you mean drive up?
drive back up to go out the driveway to apparently go get help. But then she said that she left
You were closer to go get help when you were up at the front. Okay.
the van there and she got out of it. She never described to me that she then actually drove back up the hill from being back there. When she got to where position 6 is,
Which is again where?
Behind the house.
Behind the house,
Yep.
okay. When she gets to position 6, what does she say she does?
she said that she saw Todd. He was not on fire. He didn't have any clothes on at that point. He was badly burned, and she actually used the phrase that he was like pink melt.
Pink melt?
Pink melt.
What?
Did she
And
say she approached Todd?
She did. She also said that when he was in the state, that she laid on top of him at that point because I guess the neighbors, Connie and Mike, had seen the smoke and were coming up the driveway. She laid on top of him because he didn't have any clothes on. And then she also said she didn't want him to not be able to breathe. And then she also explained it was because she didn't want him to go into shock or...
Yes, folks, you heard that correctly. She laid on top of a burn victim so that he could breathe. It's making all the sense. JKD Buck, if Miss JKD Buck 76 set me on fire and ran me over, I'd ask, so we're done as a couple? Yeah, this was always going to be a hard story to sell. This was always going to be a hard case to kind of, well, jump over the hurdle of course, everyone, when Twitter pated about a fire, runs over their husband to go get help. Again, if she wasn't happy in the marriage, she should have left. You know, they're going to have debt no matter what. And she not only took Todd away from his mother, but from the 3 boys. And probably not before I go to get, Linda. This is Linda Stermer's ex-boyfriend. I see you, Miss Linda. I see you. Anywho, we will be towards the end of today getting to one of the boys that was raised as one of their sons. So I believe that this was Todd's nephew, but was raised by Linda and Todd as their own son. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look like it would be Samuel L. Jackson, but I mean, Shaft? So we have that to look forward to. And then tonight and every night as Lori Vallow is taking, her steps into being, a pro se attorney, we will be probably picking up Lori Vallow after, Karen Reed. So be on the lookout for that. Now, if there are incredibly snarky parts of the Lori Vallow, we might do little evening streams of those. But dear God. Oh my goodness, KLF. And thank you, Sassy Southern Witch. Ronald Skip Kelly is the second chair for the defense attorney. He is from Oklahoma and has a very colorful past. Look him up, very interesting. And I think KLF actually looked it up. Didn't he have 2 DUIs? I don't know that he's gotten off the sauce. Allegedly.
Freeze. She said she could feel his heart beating. She could tell that he was breathing, but it was hard for him. She said she put her mouth on his mouth a few times and just tried to give him little breaths. And she could see in that position that Todd's skin was melted.
And then did you ask her at any time if she remembered hitting Todd or how Todd got run over by the van?
Yes, she said she has no memory of that. She said that she had heard about that accusation prior to me talking to her. She has no idea, she told Kate she had no idea how the blood got on the van, and she told Len McHugh
Mimi,
that
your
she
guess
didn't know
is
if she
as good as
ran
mine.
over Todd or if it was just a rumor about her running over Todd. But in all of these drawings and configurations, she never acknowledged or described an event where she hit her husband with a van.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, gird your loins. It's either going to be annoying or stupid. No, God, no. Please, God, no. All right, well, everyone, if you have your Quaaludes, smoke them if you got them. This is going to be an experience in, well, masochism.
Your whole purpose for the examination under oath is based on a contractual relationship that you had with.
And thank you, Rick's Cowboy, 1090. I hear that Lynette has been watching this case. Keep that woman away from court TV. And me. Look, I made fun of her a bit, so. And thank you so much for the $2 going straight into the swear jar. Sorry. I am not technically coordinated to begin with. And yes. And Ghost says that statistically attorneys are a heavy drinker because they see a lot of bad stuff. And I do believe they probably do. I would imagine that it's a hard job. A lot of, stuff is, your responsibility. But let's get into this. Oh, good Lord. All right, say your prayers and drink your sacramental wine for me.
An insurance company, isn't that correct?
I did not have a contractual relationship with the insurance company other than being retained as.
Well, I mean, you were retained by either the insurance company
Yes.
or an agent of the insurance
The
company,
insurance
right?
company, yes.
And when do you know when you were retained by the insurance company in reference to this case?
I don't have that at my fingertips, but if I recall, it would have been a couple of weeks before this first examination under oath.
Before the first examination?
Before the first one, yes. So my guess would be late January, early February.
Okay. And were you advised at the time that you was retained that the insurance status as it relates to the property of Mr. and Mrs. Stermer, that whether or not they had insurance at the time of the fire?
Yes. I was told that they were behind on payments, that they had received, I believe, their second notice that was going to be canceled, but on the day of the fire, the policy was still in legal effect.
Are you sure that the policy was in effect on the date of the fire, or was the policy not paid on the date of the fire?
As a lawyer, you should understand what legal effect means. It means that, yes, you were delinquent, and in fact, they had sent you the legal notice that your policy would be expiring. But this fire happened to show up, like a miracle in that, little period between when they can cut you off and when they, have to notify you that they're cutting you off. Oh my God, I've dropped out of college twice, and I know this before this lawyer does. Department of Education, I blame you.
And there was information provided that showed that the policy, the insurance was paid at a later date after the fire.
Now that you mentioned that, I do recall that it was a situation where if she came in and made payment, they would reinstate it without lapse, which meant that there would be coverage for the day of the fire. My concern was there a policy in place that would cover the events of January 7? And the answer to that was yes. But I believe you're right that happened because she made a payment after the fire where the insurance company reinstated without lapse.
In reference to your being retained, you have a certain amount of information that you are capable of obtaining in reference to verify.
Kiwi Green, this is the lawyer for the insurance. This is going to be Linda's boyfriend. Now, honestly, I thought that it was going to be Kate, to be honest with you. I thought we were going to pull out a woman, a fair person. But apparently, allegedly, Chris Henry Williams was Linda Stermer's ex-boyfriend and person that she was hanging out with when she was married. So, but we are still on the lawyer for the insurance company.
corroborate information. Isn't that correct?
Yes, as the attorney, I like quarterback a number of resources,
Yeah.
investigators, things like that.
And the insurance company provides you a portfolio of the property and the insured, don't they?
I don't know what you mean by portfolio.
Well, you are provided with information in reference to the house,
I would get claim documents. So I
claim
would get-
documents.
Right,
Yes.
so the policy of insurance, any recorded statements that were taken, early on, there's not going to be any expert reports, but I would eventually get expert reports that would have photographs and things. I'd get adjuster photographs. Sometimes, or eventually, I would get underwriting information, like when we first wrote the policy, did we have a floor plan? Did we have photographs? So I'd get things like that.
Yeah, so you had all the information in reference to this case, right?
I don't know if I had that when I first was retained, but eventually I got all that, yes.
Were you able to determine that in reference to the insurance documents that the policy was in either Mr. Stermer's name or was it in Ms. Stermer's name? Or was it in both their names?
I would have to look at the policy to be certain of that. What I know is that because they were married and living together at the time, that even if it was in Todd Stermer's name only, she would be what's considered a named insured.
Yes.
But she would also be considered a named insured if her name was on the policy. So because there wasn't a distinction for me, I don't recall.
Do you have the policy here with you today?
I don't. I might be able to pull it up on my computer, but
Did you check and see?
sure.
Ooh, fancy. Well, look at that, and he has an attaché case for it. Or, I'm guessing a cover. And thank you for the second swear jar donation. Thank you, Rick's Cowboys, $10.90.
First, I gotta get
Look, I
connected
have
to the
6
internet.
kids. I need all the swear jar protection I can get.
For some reason, it's not doing that. Okay. It is not getting very good service, so I'm not able to pull up the policy. Sure, that'd be fine, yeah.
Oh, he's gonna get the Wi-Fi password. And it's called TheseLawyersSuck.com. Ooh, she gave him her private digits and password.
Going through, let's see if I can do it.
Oh, for the love of Cheetos. Look, I don't know what happened to this man last night, if his kids had like the stomach flu or something, but I have never seen the state's attorney look so not wanting to be here in my entire life.
Question of him?
The policy on the property,
Okay,
the amount of the policy.
The amount.
Policy and the name. Policy.
That was the wrong,
thank you.
that was an auto policy I just pulled up, so let me see if I get a different.
Kiwi Green, I think that funny that the insurer's lawyer asked about her being faithful. I guess any reason to deny her insurance. Allstate, or were you joking? No, this is State Farm. Now, they aren't asking her about infidelity because they're trying to deny the claim based on infidelity. I believe at this time there were a lot of indications that the fire was maybe intentionally set. And that's what kind of made them lean into the, okay, what would be a reason that Linda would light Todd on fire? Basically, does she want to get him out of the way? Is there an affair? Is there money issues? So I don't think that it was necessarily to deny her a claim based on fidelity. to her marriage, as far as I'm concerned. Or no, I don't think any insurance requires you to stay faithful to your spouse. What I will say is that there were already indications that this fire was intentionally set. So they were probably trying to figure out what her motive was or what caused this fire to be set. That being said, they could have just been trying to find a way to get out of paying the insurance.
A document that would be taken off of the policy. It says that the insured is Todd and Linda Stermer.
Okay, and what was the policy amount?
Well, I have a reserve amount, but I guess I'm going to have to find the actual policy, so please hold.
No, you are fine. That's why I love doing that, because it kind of makes sense. And had I just been my job here is that I pay full attention when you're busy doing stuff like with your daily life. So while you're mopping and maybe you forget something and you're like, wait, hey Mo, I got a question. That's kind of what I see my job as the conductress, is to kind of, hey, I might know that factoid, and kind of make it make sense for you, because that's how I used to watch these trials myself. I'd be folding laundry, wrangling children, and I always loved when Rackets or whoever I was watching, Legal Vices, would, answer that question that I was too embarrassed to ask in chat. So never be embarrassed to ask a question in chat. Just like your kindergarten teacher will tell you, if you have that question, then there's probably 100 lurkers who have the same question. There are no stupid questions, except for the ones that this attorney asks.
Not retained due to the age of the file, but I believe again, I'm not finding the actual policy of insurance, but I do see a document that seems to indicate if you added all the coverages up, it'd be $504,675.
But those are not coverages just for the cost of, in reference to the policy that was covering for fire loss, that was it?
The dwelling, the contents, and something called loss of use.
Yes, and you say the total was $500,000?
504, yes.
Now, in your retainer agreement, part of what you are also provided is information in reference to the payment history of the individual insured. Isn't that correct?
Almost never. If I request it, if it becomes an issue, then I will get that, but...
How did you know that Ms. Stermer did not know that there was insurance coverage on the property because it had not been paid?
How did I know that she did not know?
Did Ms. Stermer tell you that she didn't know that they had insurance because Mr. Stermer had failed to make the payments?
I believe she did tell me that she wasn't aware that they had insurance, yes.
And you were able to verify that because you testified that you was provided information that the policy was not paid, but she was told to come in and make the payment on the policy, right?
I was provided that information, yes.
Yeah. And do you know how many months the policy had not been paid prior to the fire?
I do not know.
You don't know? No. Did you ever obtain that information from anyone with the insurance company?
I don't know if I did. The only thing I cared about is whether or not the insurance company was going to say there was a policy in place for that date. And they said there was, so that's all I cared about.
Do you know the name of the insurance agent that contacted you, or the representative from the insurance company that contacted you?
Well, it wouldn't have been the agent. It goes to the insurance company.
Yes.
They have, in this particular case, it was a gentleman named Rodney Thuma.
Rodney Thuma?
Yes.
Okay. And did you have conversations with Mr. Thuma back and forth as you conducted the depositions with Ms. Stermer?
You mean the examinations under oath?
Well, yes, if you call that.
Yes. Well, there's a difference. And yes, I certainly would have spoke to him, sure.
Okay. Did Mr. Thuma provide you information that you needed to inquire of Ms. Stermer in reference to the fire?
Well, everything I got from the insurance company came through Mr. Thuma. So, yes, I suppose he provided me information, yes.
Did Ms. Did Mr. Thuma provide you information in reference to some of the issues as it relates to the cause of the fire?
I guess I'm going to object on you're saying we're asking now then what Mr. Thuma told him about the cause of the fire. I think we're getting into some hearsay issues here. If he wants to talk in generalities, that's fine, but if we're going to talk specifics, it's hearsay.
But it's not here.
Okay, guys, not for nothing, but I'm going to cut and run here so that I can get in first place line to get my kiddos picked up. So what the new schedule probably moving forward to kind of maximize family time and still get a full trial day in is that I will end this stream. You'll be automatically redirected if you're on YouTube to the next stream in this. So starting at 3, I will be back here and then probably streaming until about 5:30 or 6 p.m. And we should hopefully get done with day 6, or at least a good chunk of it again. But that's going to be our new schedule moving forward, so I can have family time with the kiddos and Mr. Mo as he is, working and I'm there at school, and then we can hang out. So I will be back in about an hour, and then we will continue on from here. It looks like we are going to get this particular witness for just a little bit longer. We get morning break. Then we are going to go to Brad Stermer, Todd's brother. We are then going to go to Linda Stermer's ex-boyfriend. Looks like lunch. Then Kate Fox. So it looks like the woman we thought she was having an affair with, but turns out to be wrong. And, a mutual friend of Kate Fox, and then we're going to get into Kate Fox. Afternoon break, Dardita Gordon. Now, Dardita Gordon is going to be the inmate that claimed that she had some testimony from Linda confessing to the crime while she was in prison. And then we're going to get Corey Lee Pierce, the nephew that was raised by Linda and Todd as their own son. And I think that we're going to start to see a change. I think everything after, Linda's ex-boyfriend is going to be incredibly damning for Linda. And then it's going to be interesting to see if the defense can mount any defense to this kind of damning character, emotional sort of evidence of the person that she was in 2007. But I will see you guys in just a little bit. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire, because kindness no longer equals doormat. I will see you guys in just a little bit. Be safe. Don't walk in any puddles. It's flooding all over the place. Bye, you guys.